Chapter 101 Defeat Kabuto. Kabuto's heart was very refreshing. Finally, one day, this woman with a medical master, a unique woman in medical ninjutsu in the ninja world, fell at his feet. The fragile appearance made him feel extremely excited. Before I take you, I have to abuse you first. Kabuto walked towards Tsunade with a smirk. Shizune hurriedly got up from the ground, made a few seals on his hands, and snorted softly, "Ninja poison mist." When she opened her mouth to spray, a jet of black mist shot out of her mouth, covering Kabuto at once. Kabuto's expression changed slightly, seeing that the poisonous mist was extremely poisonous. Never inhale. He hurriedly jumped back and hurriedly left the range of the poisonous fog. He looked at Shizune and sneered, "You have some strength. But you're still close to stopping me." A swipe, Kabuto held his breath and suddenly rushed to Shizune's side with lightning speed. Shizune just wanted to dodge, but because Tsunade was beside him, he had to start a close fight with him. Shizune is also a Jonin, his level of physical skills is really not very good. Kabuto's overall strength is very powerful, almost comparable to Kakashi of the same period. After Shizune resisted and supported a few moves, he was cut by Kabuto's palm without checking. On the arm, Shizune's arm suddenly couldn't exert any more force. Kabuto kicked Shizune out of the way. Naruto hurried forward to catch her. Shizune fell into his arms with a Yugi expression on his face, and immediately shouted, "Naruto, go and stop him. Don't let Tsunade-sama get into trouble." Naruto nodded, didn't say much, just dodged and rushed over. Kabuto was about to kick Tsunade's body when he suddenly noticed a golden light and shadow approaching quickly. He hurriedly raised his hand and tried to block it, but the blue chakra ball that was spinning rapidly in Naruto's hand was in sight. Not good. Kabuto knew that he couldn't take it hard, and he kicked his feet sharply at the critical moment, and his body was able to avoid the blow. With a loud bang, Naruto's Rasengan fell to the ground, and a large piece of dirt was lifted by Rasengan's energy, and Kabuto had to back away again. "Master Tsunade, cheer up." Naruto called out to her, only to find that she was still sitting there trembling, with a very pitiful expression. Naruto had no choice but to pick her up by the waist, leave the place temporarily, and hand her over to Shizune. "Sister Shizune, I'll take care of Kabuto." Naruto stood in front of the two of them and stretched out his hand-to-hand seal, the art of shadow clone. Bang bang bang. 3 shadow clone appeared next to them, rushing towards Kabuto. Seeing that Naruto actually sent a clone to rush over, Kabuto couldn't help but chuckle, disapproving. After all, shadow clone's strength is evenly divided, that is to say, it is only a quarter of the main body. Soon, although Naruto's shadow clone rushed to Kabuto's side, he was overwhelmed by him in a few moves. "It's useless, just using shadow clone. The body can't beat me at all, it's just a waste of chakra." Kabuto sneered. Naruto's face was flat, and he didn't care, and divided more than 10 shadow clones and rushed to Kabuto together. More than a dozen shadow clone rushed over, even Kabuto had to deal with it seriously. Although shadow clone was not very strong, if he was accidentally punched, he would still be injured. With his own combat experience and solid foundation, Kabuto can travel under Naruto's shadow clone, and under the palm of sage art, Naruto's shadow clone disappears directly once it is touched. After a while, Naruto's shadow clone disappeared. Orochimaru, who was on the other side, came over slowly after defeating Jiraiya, watching the battle between the two, and said impatiently, "Kabuto, let's fight quickly, we are not here to fight." When Kabuto saw that Orochimaru had defeated Jiraiya, who was also Sannin, he secretly admired him, his fighting spirit instantly rose, and his aura became sharper. Naruto, on the other hand, was always standing on the spot, frowning slightly, as if thinking about countermeasures. The combat experience passed down by the shadow clone just now, he has a preliminary understanding of Kabuto's shooting habits. His movements are not very fast, and it is slightly inferior to his own in the state of the curse, but his attack method is unique. If you are touched, you will immediately fall into the disadvantage. Therefore, we must find an opportunity to kill him with one blow. After thinking for a while, Naruto smiled slightly, the spell seal opened, and both hands hand seal. Futon, wind style, the art of wind cutting. The invisible wind blade flashed past, and Kabuto had to avoid its edge, leaping up, and at the same time he slammed a bunch of kunai from his hand. Naruto stretched out his hand to block a few times, and stopped all of Kuwu, and finally rushed over when he was about to land. Kabuto, who had just landed, was immediately pushed into close combat by Naruto, but he was not afraid. Got kicked out. As soon as he landed, he immediately shot a few poisonous needles in Naruto's direction. Kabuto, who is a medical ninja, is also good at poison. Unfortunately, Naruto's speed was too fast, and he had fully understood Kabuto's strength before. At this time, these poisonous needles were flashed without touching his body at all. After that, Naruto increased the speed to the fastest, and appeared in front of Kabuto in an instant, stretched out his hand, and Rasengan used it. Facing the mighty Rasengan, Kabuto rolled back at the last minute, dodged extremely embarrassedly, and took the opportunity to throw a few hidden weapons at Naruto again. Naruto had already noticed his movements, and he dodged all the poisonous needles one by one, but a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. When Kabuto was rolling sideways, there was a sudden shock under him, and the look on his face was shocked. The next moment, a blue light burst out, breaking out from the ground under Kabuto. It slammed into his stomach with a bang. Kabuto screamed suddenly, and his body was thrown out by Rasengan's fierce blow, and fell to the ground with a thud. Several people in the field were shocked. It turned out that as early as when Tsunade Jiraiya and Orochimaru Kabuto were fighting, he had secretly arranged several avatars in the ground, and the battle with Kabuto just now was just to paralyze his attention and let him do his best. In response to his own attack, when Kabuto thought he had avoided Naruto's full-strength blow, Naruto's shadow clone, who was hiding in the ground, immediately appeared and used Rasengan to knock him out. You know, with Kabuto's cunning, it's not easy to hit him with Rasengan in the front, so Naruto can only use this method to knock him down quickly. Orochimaru was surprised when he saw that Naruto had defeated Kabuto, and he was even more shocked in his heart. Even for himself, it was not easy to defeat Kabuto so quickly, but Naruto did it. The tactical arrangement was indeed unexpected. Chapter 102 Hurt. That's great, Naruto. I didn't expect your fighting mind to be so good. I didn't even expect you to have a shadow clone hidden in the ground beforehand. Shizune exclaimed with joy. Tsunade was still trembling, but his eyes lighted slightly, and he admired Naruto's battle. Listening to the speeches of several people, Orochimaru's face was gloomy and he seemed to be dripping blood. I didn't expect that this time, it was Uzumaki Naruto who came out and disrupted his plan. This kid is really hateful. With a ruthless attack, Orochimaru swung his body and attacked Naruto. Although he couldn't hand seal, his physique skills were still there. With the retractable neck and tongue, Naruto couldn't be careless. Pity that Orochimaru, who couldn't hand seal, plus his hands were abolished, and he couldn't surpass Naruto in speed. It seems, let's take Tsunade back first. This kid is too difficult to deal with. If Jiraiya wakes up later, he won't be able to leave. Thinking of this, Orochimaru shook his body and wanted to take Tsunade away first. At this time, before Shizune could react, Orochimaru had already rushed in front of her. Just as he was about to stop him, he was kicked and flew away. Out his tongue, he wanted to take Tsunade away. Fortunately, Naruto caught up in time, forced Orochimaru away with a punch, and said angrily, "Your opponent is me. If you want to beat her, pass me first." Orochimaru had no choice but to dodge, but there was a sinister smile on his face. "I want to see how you can stop me." Before Orochimaru finished speaking, he opened his mouth, and suddenly several large snakes came out. The incomparably fast speed flew towards Naruto. Naruto dodged to the side and gently avoided the long swords, only to find that the long swords were still being castrated, and they pointed directly at Tsunade, who was sitting on the ground. "It's despicable," Naruto scolded secretly. At this time, he couldn't attack Orochimaru at all. He couldn't guarantee whether these sharp weapons had penetrated Tsunade's body before he knocked Orochimaru into the sky. Whether Tsunade in this state would use the Yin seal. There was no other way. He could only reach out and grab a snake's neck, so that it couldn't move, but unfortunately he only had 2 hands and couldn't stop it all, and at this time, if he wanted to turn around and bring Tsunade or use defensive ninjutsu, he will definitely be stabbed into a hedgehog by these swords before that. After all, Orochimaru's attack speed is not slow. Seeing all the long swords attack, Naruto bit Kiba, pinched the neck of a snake with one hand, grabbed another snake with the other hand, and then used Rasengan to knock out 2 snakes, but was finally killed by the last 2 snakes. Got stabbed in the body. But fortunately, Naruto avoided the vital point of his body at the last minute, passing through his left shoulder and stabbing him in the thigh. At this moment, Naruto couldn't help groaning. The feeling of being pierced by a sharp weapon really hurt, but it also stimulated the blood in his chest. With a muffled roar, he snapped the 2 big snakes, rushed up and punched Orochimaru in the face, knocking him out violently. Yin Yuhi's blood kept pouring out along his chest. Naruto bit Kiba, and quickly took out the bandages to bandage the 2 blood holes on his body. At this time, Shizune struggled to get up, ran over screaming, and hurriedly supported Naruto and treated him. "Naruto, don't move, you're bleeding a lot." Shizune's voice was filled with incomparable worry, and the medical ninjutsu frantically repaired Naruto's wounds. It's fine." Although Naruto was in pain, he still stared at Orochimaru, who was smiling, to prevent him from doing anything. After all, he was already injured and his strength was greatly reduced. Losing his hands as Orochimaru, the incomparably powerful, he can't be careful. You're all right now." Shizune's anxious face was covered in sweat, and his voice was full of tears. If Naruto was killed by Orochimaru in order to save himself and others, he would not be at ease for the rest of his life. Naruto gave a wry smile, turned his head and shouted at Tsunade, "Hey, are you still not getting up? I can't stop it any longer." Tsunade was staring blankly at Naruto's back, and the streaks of Yin Yuhi's blood left from him, struggling in his eyes. On the one hand, she was very afraid of the blood, but on the other hand, she didn't want to watch Naruto die for herself. However, this damn phobia made him weak and his body couldn't help himself. How to do? What exactly should I do? Get moving. Get your body moving. At this moment, Tsunade hated his weakness very much. Seeing that Naruto was hurting himself in order to protect himself, he could only sit there and couldn't help. "Naruto, hurry up. Don't mind me," Tsunade said, shaking his body. Naruto shook his head after hearing this, turned his head to stop looking at her, but said, "I said that I won't let Orochimaru hurt you, so I will never break my promise. Man, how can I give up what I said? Then I myself you will also look down on yourself." Tsunade was stunned for a while, and suddenly felt that Naruto's back was so tall and straight. How could this kid say such a thing? She was very moved, but she still persuaded. "No," reluctantly, "let's go." Naruto simply ignored her. Shizune silently looked at his profile with an indescribable feeling in his heart. "I just felt that Naruto stood here, and Tsunade and myself would feel safe." Orochimaru smiled and said, "Naruto-kun, if you weren't injured, I couldn't help you, but now. Do you think you can stop me? What's more," he said and looked aside at a glance, "I don't know when Kabuto actually got up and came over while treating his injury. You have no chance." Naruto frowned. Shizune looked nervous as he watched the two approaching, but Tsunade-sama behind him still had no ability to move. "No, even if you die this time, you won't be able to hurt Naruto and Tsunade-sama again." Shizune stood up abruptly and stopped in front of Naruto after roughly handling Naruto. "Ha ha." Orochimaru shook his head and laughed, seeing Shizune, Tsunade's performance is a futile struggle. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly came from behind the two of them. Stop. Orochimaru. What? This incomparably calm and angry voice immediately surprised both Orochimaru and Shizune's face was full of surprises. Chapter 103 Back to Konoha. I don't know when. Tsunade has stood up from the back. The trembling body is completely balanced at this time. The fear and panic in the eyes have long been replaced by the icy cold air, and the momentum on the body is even stronger. Lord Tsunade, your hyperphobia. Shizune turned to look at her in surprise and joy. Tsunade glanced at Shizune, and then on Naruto's back. A soft smile suddenly appeared on his face. I saw that she walked forward slowly, stretched out her hands and pressed Naruto's two wounds. A faint green light slowly emerged, and I saw that Naruto's wounds suddenly healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. It's more than halfway better. Naruto felt that the wound was enveloped by a gentle force, and his body was shaken slightly, and he couldn't help but praise. Tsunade's medical ninjutsu was truly unparalleled in the world, and his actions were no longer a problem after such a time. You finally got over the hyperphobia. Naruto looked at Tsunade next to him and smiled. Tsunade also smiled at him. Thanks to you, if you hadn't stopped in front of me regardless of safety, I couldn't overcome the fear in my heart. After this incident, I really want to thank you, you little brat. At this moment, Tsunade's smile was so gentle that even Naruto couldn't help but stare blankly, but he immediately recovered and smiled and said, if you don't recover, we will be in trouble today. Well, it's really hard work for you guys. Let me do the rest. Let's see how I blow them up. After Tsunade finished the treatment, he gently stroked Naruto's cheek and pulled him behind him. When facing Orochimaru again, the gentle expression on his face instantly turned extremely cold. Naruto was stroked by her jade hand, which was softer than that of a young girl, and his heart swayed, so he had to be blocked behind him in a daze. Boom! Soon as he lost his mind, Tsunade had already attacked, and the powerful force of chakra-enhanced strength immediately forced Orochimaru and Kabuto away. Immediately afterwards, she flew up, not giving the two of them a chance to breathe, and rushed forward with punch after punch. Damn Uzumaki Naruto, he actually made Tsunade's phobia disappear. Orochimaru scolded secretly, and Kabuto and two quickly backed away, saying, it seems that there is no way to catch her today. Kabuto, prepare to retreat. Quote. Yes. Soon as he finished speaking, Tsunade's attack came again. This time, Orochimaru opened his mouth fiercely, and suddenly spewed countless poisonous snakes from his mouth, forming a high wave of snakes, and immediately included everything around him. The sound was terrifying, and a gust of wind blew up. Tsunade's scalp was tingling, so many snakes were not easy to deal with. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded, Doden Earth-style, swamp of the underworld. In the next instant, the group of snakes that was like a wave suddenly sank. Although they were still swimming hard, they were constantly being pulled by a gentle force, and they couldn't go any further. Naruto looked to the side. It was Jiraiya. I don't know when he woke up and used this ninjutsu to resist Orochimaru's snake waves. After everything subsided, Orochimaru and Kabuto had long since disappeared. Facing the chaos in the field, they could not help but be speechless for a long time. In the town, a few people have returned to the hotel. After this battle, Tsunade cured the hyperphobia. Although Naruto suffered some injuries, she was also cured by her. The remaining problem is that Tsunade returned to Konoha. Something happened. When Naruto asked her if she would like to go to Konoha as a Hokage next, Tsunade suddenly smiled at him. Little devil, since you sincerely let me go, then I will send a kind heart and promise you. But Naruto couldn't help sweating, and looked at her suspiciously. But I don't want to hold the position of Hokage for a long time, at most 3 years. When you grow up, I will give it to you, Tsunade said. Naruto was stunned for a moment, then Jiraiya said, that's fine. To do Hokage with Tsunade's character is also embarrassing for you. Since you are willing to take over as Hokage for 3 years first, I will train Naruto well in these 3 years. Quote. When Tsunade heard it, she readily agreed. Although she prefers gambling rather than Hokage, it is not bad for her to do Hokage. So the next day, a few people packed up and prepared to return to Konoha. On the way, Naruto walked up to Tsunade and asked, I said Tsunade-sama, why did you agree to me so easily? You seem to be very resistant to being a Hokage before. When Tsunade heard this, he smiled and reached out to pinch Naruto's face, but Naruto avoided him, and pouted, it's really not cute, but in fact, I cured me to repay you. I only went to Konoha because of hyperphobia, otherwise who would want to do Hokage, it's hard and thankless. Quote. Naruto couldn't help sweating. Tsunade, the Hokage position that everyone in Konoha wanted to be, was not uncommon at all. Hearing her reason, he could only laugh. I was secretly grateful that I saved her life and cured her fear of blood phobia, otherwise I don't know how to get her back to Konoha. But this ending is not bad, at least this is what she voluntarily went back to. Looking at Naruto's smiling face, Tsunade's heart was filled with gentle ripples. This face was so similar to Naoki's, and his back in front of him yesterday was so tough and straight. That moment, she suddenly felt a sense of security being protected. As Sannin, she hadn't felt this way for a long time. Naruto, if I used to live aimlessly and decadently, then from now on, I will pave the way for you, fully support you in Konoha, and protect you until the day you become the 6th generation of Hokage. This, Shizune was also watching Naruto silently, with a very gentle expression on his face. A few days later, the group returned to Konoha. Just after arriving at the gate of the village, the ninja guarding the gate rubbed his eyes in disbelief when he saw Jiraiya and Tsunade. When he saw that it was really these two big men, he finally became furious. Ran out to report. Tsunade looked around, watching Konoha's scene, his face couldn't help showing infinite emotion, and his eyes couldn't help but get wet. After decades of separation, I'm finally back here today, she muttered to herself, while Jiraiya laughed. Tsunade, how is it? Konoha still hasn't changed, right? Yeah, it hasn't changed, it's just that we're getting old. Tsunade sighed, looking a little lonely. Are you regretting your lost youth? You're not old, in my eyes you're still an 18-year-old sister. Naruto couldn't help comforting her when he saw her sad look. You brat, I'm an old woman. After hearing Naruto's praise, Tsunade couldn't help but burst into a smile, his face burst into bloom, and he scolded with a smile. However, although she laughed and scolded her, she was very happy in her heart. I didn't expect this little devil's mouth to be so sweet. Naruto smiled and shook his head. Seeing that she was no longer sad, he was relieved. At this time, he suddenly saw a figure sneaking in a corner, his face couldn't help but be taken aback. Chapter 104 Style. The next moment, Naruto and Tsunade said a few words and left them first, actually walking towards the place where the man was hiding. Just halfway there, I saw a petite figure standing shyly from the corner, with a shy and happy expression on his face. Hinata, Naruto shouted, and he suddenly understood that it was Hinata who was secretly hiding here to watch him. He was also happy about this, and it felt very good to be cared by the girl. Naruto, Hinata seemed to be a child who had done something wrong, standing in front of him at a loss. Her face was ashamed of Yuhi, even the root of her neck was Yuhi. I haven't seen Naruto for a long time. It's hard to find knowing the news that Naruto was returning to the village today. She waited here early, but at the moment when she saw Naruto, seeing so many great people around him, she was very shy and did not dare to go out and meet him on the spot. Seeing that she was still shy as always, Naruto smiled gently, touched her head, and said softly, Hinata, are you waiting for me here? Hinata nodded slightly, looking submissive. Suddenly she looked up at him again and said, Naruto, how have you been outside these days? After speaking, she lowered her head. Seeing her so cute, Naruto couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. He quietly pulled her hand, squeezed her pink cheek again, and said with a smile, "Hinata, thank you for your concern. Is your injury all right? Let's go eat something first, and I'll tell you slowly." He just came back from outside, and his stomach was already growling with hunger, and now he just pulled up Hinata to eat together. Good. Hinata had eaten before, but seeing that Naruto looked very hungry, he readily agreed and accompanies him to dinner. While Naruto ate a lot, he did not forget to tell her about his encounter with Tsunade this time. Of course, he naturally hides those ambiguous coincidences and his injuries. Hinata listened with relish, and Chichi-ai whispered, If there is a chance, I can also perform a mission with Naruto, that would be great." Naruto couldn't help laughing when he heard the words, scratched her cute little nose, and said, "My missions are all very dangerous, you can't go." Hinata was yuhi by Naruto's close contact and face, but now that she has gotten used to it a little, she won't faint. At this moment, a surprised whisper came from outside the restaurant. "Hey, Naruto, so you're here." With a crisp voice, Sakura with long pink hair jumped in and ran in. Seeing Naruto and Hinata eating intimately, he pouted. She was a little jealous, but she didn't show her joy at seeing Naruto, and said happily, "Naruto, I haven't seen you for a few days. I heard that you brought Mr. Tsunade, one of the Sanins, with you. She is my most admired female ninja, and her medical ninjutsu is so high. I really want to meet her. If I can learn her medical ninjutsu, then I will die of joy." Hearing her chatter, Naruto smiled and greeted her, interrupting her, "Sakura, I just got back to the village, and you found it here. The news is really well informed." Sakura gave a slight yuhi on his face, glanced at Hinata, and said jokingly, "People are paying the most attention to your news. When I heard that you were returning to the village, you ran out of the medical class halfway through your study. How is it? Good to you?" It's really good, really good." Naruto touched his nose and said, "In that case, let me help you talk to Lord Tsunade, maybe I can convince her to accept you as a disciple." Really? When Sakura heard a surprise on her face, she danced with joy. "It's great, if I can become Master Tsunade's disciple, my medical ninjutsu will definitely become super powerful. You are so kind, Naruto." Saying that, Sakura, who was overly surprised, suddenly rushed over and hugged Naruto's neck and gave him a hard kiss on the face. Hinata's eyes widened immediately, and Naruto was kissed by Sakura. Naruto was kissed by Sakura. Naruto was kissed by Sakura. I'm sorry, I'm too excited." Sakura came back to her senses, only to realize that her actions were a bit too much. Looking at Hinata's face and Yuhi's dazed appearance, she immediately screamed. Yuhi ran out with a shy face, but he was overjoyed. He took this opportunity to kiss Naruto. Did he get closer to Naruto? Naruto touched the hint of girlish fragrance still on his face, looked at Hinata with a slightly embarrassed look, but when she saw her eyes, Yuhi lowered his head with a face, and looked slightly lost. He didn't know what to say for a while, and he couldn't help but feel a little resentment at Sakura's actions. This Sakura kissed himself in front of Hinata. Isn't this to make Hinata think too much? Eating and drinking, Naruto paid the money and walked around the village with Hinata. The news that Tsunade had arrived in Konoha had spread all over the village, and people kept mentioning Tsunade's name on the street, many of them Tsunade. Her enthusiastic fans praised her enthusiastically, and when I heard that Tsunade was coming back as Hokage, she even raised both hands in approval. Naruto couldn't help but sigh that although Tsunade had been away from Konoha for decades, she still held such an important place in the hearts of the people of the village. Her medical ninjutsu saves countless people, and her beauty is also an important factor. You can see that the middle-aged uncle in his 40s still looks like a nympho. The two walked around the village, and the original loss in Hinata's heart finally slowly dissipated. It was not until the sun set that she and Naruto reluctantly parted at the door of Hyuga's house. Naruto. When Naruto turned to leave, Hinata suddenly called him again. Well, what's wrong? Is there anything else? Naruto turned to look at her. Looking at Naruto's clear eyes, Hinata's face gradually became moistened by Yuhi's, and the sunset slanted on it, making her white and penetrating Yuhi's skin even more attractive, making it difficult to tell whether it was the color of the sunset or her original color. Color. That, Naruto, Hinata said in a dignified manner, can you please close your eyes? What? Naruto, can you close your eyes? I have a gift for you. Hinata took a deep breath and said carefully. Naruto didn't know why, looked at her doubtfully for a while, and finally closed his eyes, thinking that you're not going to kiss me, are you? Just as the idea of Naruto came up, there was a sudden hot and humid feeling on the left cheek, and a warm girly fragrance suddenly spread over the surface, and he was stunned. Depend on. It was guessed right. Hinata with his beautiful eyes closed and kissed his face in surprise. He saw that her eyes were tightly closed, her lovely eyelashes were trembling slightly, and Yuhi's face was even more dizzy. All over. He was stunned by such a beautiful scenery, but he was more surprised at this moment. He never thought that Hinata, who had always been shy, would dare to kiss himself. This time, Naruto finally couldn't bear it anymore, and when his heart was hot, he opened his mouth and kissed her cute little mouth. Hinata let out a coquettish snort. Her whole body trembled violently, her pure white eyes opened immediately, but immediately closed tightly, her small hands tightly tugged Naruto's clothes, and her body was even tighter. Naruto actually kissed me. At this moment, Hinata's heart was infinitely ashamed and joyful, a heat surged over his head, and he fainted immediately. Chapter 105 Four People. The next day, Naruto returned to Konoha for a night's rest and continued his training refreshed. Rasenshuriken can no longer be used at present, and he can only temporarily develop ninjutsu such as Big Ball Rasengan. Last night, Hinata was kissed by Naruto and fainted. Later, Naruto, who realized that she was a little rude, sent her back to Hyuga's house. At that time, she was also uneasy when she was scrutinized by Hyuga Hiyashi. Unexpectedly, he actually molested a 12 or 13-year-old girl, and Naruto couldn't help but feel hot when he thought about it now. The past 2 days, Tsunade has also been working on taking office. By the way, he performed surgery on Little Lee to treat the wounded who were seriously injured in this battle. Her reputation has become more prosperous because of this. Now everyone in the streets and alleys knows that Tsunade is about to become the 5th generation of Hokage. In this regard, although Naruto was a little curious about why Danzo's group were so quiet, he didn't think too much about it. Since Danzo and the others did not compete for the position of the 5th Hokage, they must be worried about something. Jiraiya left the village last night, saying that he had received a very important news temporarily, and he had to go check it out in person, and when he came back next time, it would be time to take himself to practice. Today is the 2nd day of returning to Konoha. Most of the village has been built in these days, and it has recovered to its former prosperity. He came all the way to the training ground and began to sit down cross-legged to appreciate the power of nature. It's a pity that at that time the feeling that I felt in the Yudu space can no longer be obtained. Because of this, he couldn't help shaking his head in frustration. A few days later, Tsunade's inauguration ceremony has passed, and the village is thriving. It seems that although Tsunade has just taken office, his management is still orderly. Suzuki also went to Naruto the day before Naruto came back and asked to train with him. During the days when Naruto was not in Konoha, Suzuki lay on the bed for a long time because of Itachi's moonlight until Tsunade. It's fine when you come back. These days, she has also thought about a lot, most of which is that her strength is too poor, and she can't fight Itachi at all. Thinking of the powerlessness she felt when facing Itachi, she was very unwilling, and when she thought of Naruto's powerful strength, she only felt that she was becoming more and more useless. When she was in danger, only Naruto came to save her, but when Naruto encountered danger, she was unable to save her. This feeling made her almost crazy. After training with Naruto for a few days, every time Zuoyu made a contest with him, she was defeated very quickly. She felt that Naruto was a big mountain in front of her, and she could never cross it. But what followed was more and more intense unwillingness and desire for strength. She was unwilling to be under Naruto forever, and she would always be protected by Naruto, and she also longed for herself to stand in front of Naruto. Protect him. She doesn't know how to become stronger. She only knows how to practice ninjutsu and taijutsu over and over again, but in her impetuous state of mind, how can she carefully appreciate the experience gained during training? Compared with Naruto, her progress is very limited. For this reason, Naruto also persuaded her that if she wants to become stronger, she must first change her state of mind. The irritable mood could no longer be calm, and Naruto persuaded him to have no choice but to shake his head and sigh. After a few days, Zuoyu became more and more impatient. On this day, Naruto sent her back home. Seeing her frowning all the time, he really had the urge to tell her everything he really wanted to tell her, but after thinking about it carefully, he felt that even if he told her the truth, how about that? Although Zuoyu is only a 12 or 13-year-old girl, her heart is pure as white paper, but her basic thinking ability is not bad at all. She can't get confirmation of her own words at all, so how can she easily believe it? Moreover, after the truth he said, he couldn't justify it. After all, an outsider who didn't belong to the Uchiha family, and was a child of 12 or 13 years old, the truth he said was really hard to convince people. Okay, Naruto, I'm home. At the door of the house, Zuoyu waved goodbye to Naruto. Watching Naruto's figure drifting away, she also felt a sense of loss in her heart. Compared with the powerful Naruto, it's getting farther and farther away from him now. Reaching out, Sayu seemed to want to grab Naruto's back, but she could only watch the figure gradually disappear between her fingers. Sighing slightly, Zuoyu returned to the room and continued to take out Kuwu to practice in the courtyard. That night, when Zuoyu, who was training hard, was about to take a bath and sleep, a few figures suddenly jumped in from outside the wall. From the looks of it, it looks like an adult. Who are you? Zuoyu screamed, just about to rush up to see what happened, but suddenly those people jumped out together and fled outside. Zuoyu snorted coldly, feeling very unhappy with these guys who dared to break into her yard, so she immediately chased after her footsteps. Those figures were the Otogaku group of 4 under Orochimaru. They were ordered to take Sayu to Orochimaru. At this time, they finally touched the village and lured her into the bait. Zuoyu didn't know the identities of these people, and chased them all the way to the surrounding of the village, and they finally stopped on the top of a big tree. Why didn't you run away? Zuoyu stood quietly behind them and said coldly. At this time, it was almost midnight, and a full moon hung high in the sky. Under the moonlight, she could only see that they were 4 strange figures. Since you've been led out by us, why do we have to run again? Gatong Maru suddenly turned around and smiled, and at the same time, the other 3 turned around, Zukin, Tiyuya, and Jirobo. Seeing the 4 evil spirits, Zuoyu's brows could not help but wrinkle slightly, and she tightened her hands and said with vigilance, "What conspiracy do you have?" "Ha ha ha, Uchiha Sasu, we are Orochimaru-sama's subordinates. We brought you here this time to let you meet Orochimaru-sama with us. You are really lucky to be seen by Orochimaru-sama." Kidomaru laughed. Orochimaru. Sasu's tone turned cold when she heard the name. She knew that this guy was missing and who attacked the village. He bit herself in the forest of death that day. If it wasn't for Naruto, she would have been killed at that time. He took it, so she didn't like it at all, and said bitterly, "It turned out to be Orochimaru. What did he want me to see him for? HMPH, did he want me to go, so I went." "Presumptuous, it is your honor that Lord Orochimaru is willing to meet you." Zuo-jin scolded immediately upon hearing this. Zuoyu pouted, disapprovingly, "What if I don't go?" Chapter 106 Lure. Sayu fell to the side helplessly, looking at the figures of the 4 in front of her. Her heart was filled with infinite unwillingness. She was really useless. Not only was she unable to catch up with Naruto, but now even Orochimaru's subordinates couldn't beat him. What qualifications do you have to take revenge? What qualifications are there to chase Naruto? The more she thought about it, the more decadent Zuoyu's expression became. Kitamaru and the four of them laughed smugly when they saw Sayu, a genius who was hailed as a rare gift by Orochimaru-sama, and laughed proudly. Genius, nothing more than that. Jirobo sneered. Did I see that Orochimaru-sama was wrong? Is such a useless kid worthy of our shot? You really look down on her. Ha 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 ha. Several people laughed unscrupulously, which made Zuoyu extremely unwilling, biting her lip, and almost burst into tears. Suddenly, Kitamaru stopped laughing, squatted down and looked at Sayu. Do you know why you are so weak? That's because you didn't get the power of your Lord Orochimaru. You have the spell on your neck that Orochimaru-sama bestowed on you, but unfortunately you can't use it. That's why you're so weak. I don't know how to use this kind of thing. Zuoyu knew from Naruto long ago that the curse mark was harmful to her body, so she snorted after hearing his words, and didn't attack him at all. Gatonmaru smiled indifferently, looked back at the other four, stood up and looked down at her and said, "What a naive brat, a brat like you doesn't even know how much power Orochimaru-sama bestows." Powerful. Since that's the case, let's show you how powerful this is. After speaking, several people smiled at each other, the curse seal opened, and everyone immediately entered the second state. The appearance of becoming a ghost and a ghost made Zuoyu's heart tremble, but the radiance from these people, the momentum is actually several times stronger than before. Although this level of aura could not be compared with Naruto, she was shocked when she saw several people suddenly turn their strength several times over. Naruto said that this power is very powerful, but if it is not used properly, it will have very large side effects on itself. However, if the master can control this power, it will greatly increase its own strength. Seeing how the four of them transformed using the curse seal in an instant, Zuoyu's heart was greatly moved. Several people naturally saw Zuoyu's thoughts, and couldn't help but smile together. After withdrawing the power of the curse mark, Taiyu also said, "This is the power bestowed by Lord Orochimaru." Wasted. Kitamaru smiled and seduced. As long as you follow Orochimaru-sama, you will naturally get the power you want. How about it? Do you want to come with us? Don't miss the beautiful future. Zuoyu frowned, her expression unmoved. Seeing her appearance that the oil and salt did not go in, Gatongwan took out another pill and said to her, "This is a medicine prepared by Lord Orochimaru to temporarily stimulate the power of the curse in your body. Take it and let it be feel the power for yourself." He then threw the pill to Zuoyu. Zuoyu took it, put it in her hand and stared at it for a long time. Finally swallowed it. She is not afraid that the drug is poisonous. These people obviously did not want to forcibly take her away when they came here. Otherwise, with their strength, they would never talk to herself so much, but would simply take herself away. It can be seen that their purpose is not to arrest themselves, but to convince themselves. So, she swallowed the pill. When the pill was swallowed, a heat flow rose from the abdomen, and at the same time, the curse mark on the neck suddenly stinged. Immediately afterwards, a powerful force spread out from the curse seal, surrounding his entire body. Under the moonlit night, Gatongmaru and the others looked at the fiery Yuhi's curse marks on Zuoyu's face. The power was stronger than his own state, and they were envious of the power of this day's curse marks in their hearts, but it was a pity. He and others all have the curse of the earth, which is even worse than the curse of the sky. Power. Zuoyu stared blankly at her hands, feeling the powerful power that surged up from her body. The power that she had only felt in the previous outbreak came again. This feeling made her whole person intoxicated. She felt that she could now blow up a big tree with one punch, and even the few people in front of her were no match for it. How is it? Do you feel it? You are only in state 1. If you further use drugs to stimulate the power of your state 2, it must be even more powerful. Gatongwan said. How is it? Are you excited? As long as you promise us to see Lord Orochimaru, we will naturally give you this power. Several people continued to seduce. Zuoyu has been dazzled by the power now, and has long left Naruto's previous words behind her. The power of the curse mark has made her intoxicated and unable to extricate herself. And she didn't care so much about the side effects of forcibly using the power of the spell. The next day, when Naruto saw Zuiyu again, he suddenly found that she seemed a little too afraid to look into his eyes, as if dodging and daring to look at him, and he couldn't help but feel strange in his heart. Zuiyu, what's the matter? Did something happen? Naruto couldn't help but ask her while cultivating. Oh, no, nothing. Zuiyu saw him ask herself, and hurriedly walked away to continue training. Naruto frowned slightly, wondering in her heart, she must be hiding something from herself. At the end of the day, Naruto was also quietly observing her, and when she found her frowning in thought and struggling with her face, she felt even more relieved. In the evening, after taking her home, Naruto was walking on the street alone, wondering if Zuiyu was troubled by the lack of progress in her recent practice. It seems that I have to find another opportunity to enlighten her well. At this moment, the two familiar figures in front suddenly appeared in the line of sight. It was Tsunade and Shizune, but at the moment they were heading straight for a casino. Shizune followed behind and kept persuading, while Tsunade looked impatient. Seeing this, Naruto couldn't help but follow him, watching Tsunade bet big bets. It's just that many people around were afraid to gamble with Tsunade because of her majesty. Later, she slammed and said that if anyone dared to let her in gambling, he would have to taste the anger of Hokage. In this way, everyone had to gamble with her, but, as you can imagine, Tsunade lost everything, and those people were addicted to gambling, and for a while they forgot Tsunade's identity. In an instant, Tsunade ran out of the casino in a fit of rage, empty-handed. Shizune followed her with a downcast look on her face. Chapter 107 Drunk. Naruto followed them with a funny face. Seeing that they had lost all their money, he couldn't help but stepped forward and smiled. Master Tsunade, as Hokage, you still have time to gamble now. When Tsunade saw that it was Naruto, Tsunade hummed, "What? Are you coming to see me as a joke?" Seeing her angry expression, she doesn't look like a person in her 40s or 50s. This temper is clearly a little girl, and he couldn't help laughing. I don't dare, but I'm very strange that you gamble like this. Aren't you afraid of ruining your reputation? Shizune nodded vigorously behind him, agreeing with Naruto's statement. Tsunade looked at the two of them like this, and hummed in anger, "Okay. You two have joined forces to teach me a lesson, haven't you? Humph, you are not qualified yet." Shizune was trained by Tsunade to not dare to speak, but Naruto was not afraid of her, and still laughed secretly there. Result, Tsunade glared at Naruto angrily, and shouted, "Damn kid, he's making fun of me even after he lost all his money today. Come drink with me. If you can drink it, I'll let you go." Shizune was startled when he heard this. "Master Tsunade, Naruto is still a child. He can't drink." "It doesn't matter, I drink with this Hokage today, so what if I make an exception?" Tsunade said, giving Naruto a sideways look. "You mean that? Naruto, if people don't agree, they will immediately jump over and bite him to death." Naruto was stunned for a while, then glanced at Shizune helplessly, and said, "Hey, if you want to drink, just go, why are you pulling me?" "Huh, what do you mean by that?" Tsunade immediately became unhappy when he heard that, grabbed Naruto's collar, and hummed close to him, "If you don't drink with me, then you look down on me. Just watch done." Naruto was at a loss for words, and he could only nod in agreement as he smelled the unique body fragrance on Tsunade's body. "Haha, that's good." Tsunade stroked Naruto's cheek affectionately, pulling him to the pub. The tavern, Tsunade, Shizune were being forced to drink by Tsunade. Listening to her keep talking about gambling, they could only smile wryly on their faces, and then heard her talk about Hokage's work. It's another big downfall, saying that the happy days of the past are no more, and now even gambling is restricted everywhere. Naruto couldn't help laughing at this. "Master Tsunade, as long as you don't lose the entire Konoha. HMPH, I'm that kind of person." Tsunade rolled his eyes at him, With the slightly drunk face after drinking, the intoxicating blue eyes, and the charming and innocent tone, Naruto's heart was instantly shaken, and he thought that Tsunade for it's a heinous crime to be so attractive at the age of 50. Sir Tsunade, you're almost done drinking, let's go back to rest. Shizune was also dragged to drink several glasses, and at this time he was a little drunk and persuaded, but the tone was so weak and not convincing at all. Naruto was also drunk long ago, but he still maintained a trace of sobriety. He tried his best to stand up and pull the two of them out. Don't pull me, I still want to drink. Tsunade ignored him and dragged him back instead. Naruto slumped into Tsunade's arms, his head resting on her incomparably huge weapon. A soft feeling came, and suddenly there was a feeling of not wanting to get up. Maybe he was really drunk. Tsunade actually hugged Naruto's head and laughed. You kid, you're so naughty, you even got into my arms, do you still want to drink my milk? Quote. Naruto faced this great beauty, and his mature mentality has long been tormented. Hearing her say this at this moment, there is a bang in his head. He just feels a surge of blood, and he can't wait to directly press her under him. For rectification on the spot. However, the impulse was only temporary, the thought was instantly extinguished, and the restless mind was also suppressed by reason, but Tsunade continued to hold his body, a pair of jade hands pressed against his head and kept squeezing to his chest, seems to really want to give him milk. Shizune on the side was ashamed and shocked. I didn't expect Mr. Tsunade to be so rude after drinking today, and actually molested the child. Naruto is only 12 or 13 years old, this is not as simple as an old cow eating tender grass. Shizune hurriedly pulled Naruto away, picked up the drunk Tsunade and walked out. Naruto left Tsunade's embrace, and suddenly there was a hint of reluctance in his heart, but he immediately woke up and hurriedly dragged Tsunade out of the tavern with Shizune. 3. Return to Tsunade's house. Naruto was already sweating profusely, not tired, but suffocated, and he really didn't dare to drink with her in the future. Luckily, only Tsunade drank the most among the three, and Naruto and Shizune were not drinking much on the road. Watching Tsunade fall into a deep sleep at this time, the two of them couldn't help but glance at each other, and they were speechless. After a while, Naruto was about to leave. Shizune grabbed him and apologized. Naruto, I'm sorry, Tsunade-sama just lost his temper after drinking. Don't take it to heart. It's nothing, there's no need to apologize, Sister Shizune. Naruto smiled back. Well, that's fine, but I'm also surprised that Tsunade-sama is so close to you. She has never been so happy since those things. Shizune glanced at Tsunade silently and said slowly. Naruto had an indescribable feeling in his heart that this teenage boy could actually eliminate Tsunade-sama's fear of blood and make her so happy. Could it be that he had some magic power on him? Naruto was stunned when he heard the words, then smiled again, and said goodbye. Sister Shizune, you should rest early as well, and you have to work tomorrow. After speaking, he jumped out of the window, leaving Shizune standing in front of the window silently watching his back disappear into the moonlight. At this time, Sayu was in the woods somewhere outside the village when she saw the 4 Otogakure. How is it? Have you considered it? Gatong Maru asked. Zuo-Yu's eyes were as calm as water. She looked up at the moon in the sky, and when she lowered her head, she finally exhaled heavily. I promise you. The 4 of them heard the words. They couldn't help but look at each other, smiled at each other, and said, you know the current affairs. Sakin also said, it is our honor to be able to serve Orochimaru-sama. Kidomaru patted a high wooden barrel beside him, and said to Zuo-Yu, since you agreed, then come in, we will help you unlock the power of the second curse, and in the meantime, also bring along you go back to Lord Orochimaru. Then you will have great power. Chapter 108 Take Command. In the early morning sun, Naruto practiced in the old place for a while, but he never waited for Zuo-Yu to come over. In the past few days, Zuo-Yu had arrived earlier than himself, and this place was an appointment for the two of them to come together. In the training place, she shouldn't go the wrong way, right? After practicing for a while, Naruto had a bad feeling when he remembered the abnormal state of Zuo-yu yesterday, so he rushed to Uchiha's old house and came to Zuo-yu's house to have a look, but found that there was no one there, and the door was tight. Close. Naruto frowned and became more and more uneasy. Finally, he knocked open Zuo-yu's door and stared blankly at the empty bedroom. Zuo-yu is not here. Did she go somewhere else? Naruto was about to send out hundreds of shadow clones from Hand Seal to look for, but suddenly saw a note on her bedside table. Picking it up, it reads, Naruto, I'm sorry I can't train with you today. I think I was no longer in the Konoha village when you found this place. Naruto, you know, I'm also very reluctant to leave the village, but I can't help it. What I don't pursue, if I don't have that thing, I can't take revenge, I can't get happiness. Although I am very happy when I am with you, but I have no strength, I just feel that you are getting farther and farther out of reach, so, I'm gone. The power I can't find in the village will be found outside. At that time, when I have enough power, I will come back to you. At that time, no matter what happens I will protect you. Naruto, will you blame me? Seeing what was written on this note, Naruto was stunned for a while, and finally thought of the original plot in his mind. No wonder he has been feeling uneasy these past few days. It's just that over the past few days, Sayu's performance was fundamentally different from that of Sasuke in the original book, and he was also numb for a while, but he didn't expect that she still went out of the village in pursuit of power. Zuiyu, you stupid girl. Naruto scolded secretly and rushed towards the Hokage office building with a note. Tsunade was dealing with the files with a headache when suddenly an Anbu came to report that several Anbu outside the village had been knocked unconscious last night. Tsunade immediately became alert, and just as he was about to send someone to investigate, Naruto jumped in from the window, which immediately startled Anbu. Tsunade and Shizune also hurriedly turned to look at him. Naruto, what's wrong? Did something happen in a hurry? Tsunade asked first. Tsunade didn't seem to remember the gaffe after drinking last night. Naruto showed her the note and stated that she might have gone to Orochimaru's place. The next few people suddenly looked serious. Tsunade said, is this child Sasu unable to figure it out? He actually ran out of the village. And he still went to the Orochimaru guy. This is already an act of defection. Hearing Tsunade's angry tone, Naruto hurriedly said, don't worry, I think they should still be on the road now. We will send someone to chase them right now. If they are fast, they should be able to catch up. Humph. Uchiha Sasu is too ignorant. It's so stupid. He actually listens to Orochimaru's words. Tsunade cursed for a while, and Shizune hurried to comfort him. Finally, after Tsunade had calmed down a little, he gave the order to Anbu, go and call all the Jonin who can be dispatched from the village now. Then Anbu hesitated and said, recently, Jonin and Chunin have been sent out on missions for the sake of the reputation of the village, and there are no suitable Jonins left among those who can be assigned missions. Tsunade frowned and said again, then let Shikamaru Choji Ino and the others come over, by the way, then call for Neji and Kiba. Anbu heard the order and went away. Naruto shook his head and said, I don't think so many people are necessary. Just let Kiba and Neji go with me. I just need their perception ability. Are you alone? Tsunade was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said, I know that your strength is enough to deal with this Sayu recovery mission, but don't you think it's a good time to train them? Any chance? Ah, it seems that Tsunade-sama, you are becoming more and more like Hokage. Naruto couldn't help laughing bitterly. Nonsense, didn't I have the Hokage style before? Tsunade glared at him when he heard the words, and then seemed to think of something, his face slightly yuhi, and he snorted and ignored him. Obviously, she was thinking about the drunkenness last night. After a while, several people were called, and Sakura came with them. She originally wanted to come to Hokage to find Tsunade to apprentice, but she didn't want to meet so many companions to do the task, and suddenly became curious. Afterwards, Tsunade told a few people about the matter, and Sakura couldn't help but exclaimed, looking at Naruto, is this true? Naruto. Of course it's true, Tsunade snapped. Do you still doubt what I said? Hokage's Majesty, Sakura, didn't dare to resist, so she had to bow her head when she heard the words, but she was a little afraid of Tsunade's hot temper. As a result, the thought of wanting to be a teacher immediately sank to the bottom of her heart. Sakura's frightened look, Naruto couldn't help but patted her on the shoulder and said softly, "Don't be afraid, Tsunade-sama is just a little bad-tempered." Hearing Naruto's consolation, Sakura felt a lot better, raised her head and said worriedly, "Naruto, you must bring Sasu back, she used to be alone, and now that we have our companions, we must not let her go." She was alone again. Naruto nodded, complimenting Sakura's kindness in his heart. "Don't worry, this girl Zuiyu just had a cramp in her head for a while. When I go out, I will definitely bring her back. If she dares to behave badly, I will give her a hard blow," Naruto said with a smile. With a puff, hearing Naruto speak so directly, several people present couldn't help laughing out loud. Sakura was relieved and looked at Naruto tenderly. "Well, I believe in you." Ino, who was on the side, couldn't stand it any longer, and hurriedly pulled Naruto and was about to leave. "What else are you talking about? Let's go quickly. The time is very pressing now." Hearing what she said, everyone nodded in agreement. So, a group of people took Tsunade's order and hurried out of the village. Along the way, they sent Kiba and Akamaru to the stunned Anbu to smell the smell of the enemy, and then they followed the smell all the way. Kiba's long-distance tracking ability is very strong. Even if the other party has been running in the middle of the night and has a long distance from the Konoha group, he can still roughly judge the other party's direction. So, with Kiba around, Naruto no longer has to worry about finding the traces of the Otogaku 4. Instead, he was thinking about how to deal with them when the time came, and persuaded Zuoyu to come back. Chapter 109 Catch Up. The group was just about to leave the village, but when they passed the gate of the village, Naruto saw a petite figure standing pretty at the gate of the village. Exactly Hinata. Seeing a few Naruto appear, she seemed to have mustered up a lot of courage, and ran to his side before stopping, panting and coquettishly, "Naruto, are you going to rescue Zuoyu?" Naruto nodded. Hinata had a worried look on her face, raised her head and showed a cute smile again, and said softly, "Naruto, be careful along the way. Be sure to come back." Although she pretended to be relaxed, she was very worried, because she heard that Sayu was captured by Orochimaru's people, and what Naruto had to face this time was a powerful ninja like Orochimaru. Do not worry. However, she knew that even if she was worried, it was useless, and that her weak strength could only silently bless her behind her back. Naruto knew that Hinata was caring about himself, so he reached out and touched her head, and said softly, "Don't worry, Hinata, I will definitely bring Sasu back." "Well, I believe in you, Naruto," Hinata replied sweetly. Naruto and the others continued on their way. Hinata stood at the head of the village and looked at his back, fascinated for a long time. Along the way, several people began to discuss this mission strategy. Since the opponents are very powerful, and the specific intelligence of the enemy is not clear at all, so after discussing for a long time, there is no good plan, and we can only wait to catch those people first. Although Naruto knew the specific situation of the Otogaku group of 4, he didn't pay much attention to the 4 of them. What he was worried about was whether Orochimaru would personally take part in this operation, or would gather his many masters to deal with him. How will you be by then? However, he immediately thought that Orochimaru was now at a critical moment of changing his body, so he probably wouldn't go out in person, and what he had to deal with was Kimimaro. After chasing them for a long time, they came to a dense forest. Suddenly Neji said with a startled voice, "I saw a few vague figures in front of me. It's about 5 kilometers away from here." Naruto was shocked when he heard it. "Hurry up, make sure to catch up with them." Front of the jungle, the Otogaku group of 4 were running fast, and Jirobo was carrying the wooden barrel that sealed Sayu. At this time, the four were chatting with each other. Sara Orochimaru will surely reward us for bringing back Uchiha Seijutsu smoothly this time. The four of us will be able to use him even more. Jirobo said with a smile. Yeah, we have been planted with the brand of Lord Orochimaru, and there is no other way to go except to serve him wholeheartedly. Besides, it is very rare to be able to do things under Lord Orochimaru. Zuo Jin also haha laughed. You two idiots, don't get too carried away. After all, we are nothing more than chess pieces for the Orochimaru-sama. The power that Orochimaru-sama gives us is the most important. Taiyu also scolded. Who are you scolding? Jirobo was immediately angry when he heard it. Sakin also stared at Tayuya angrily. I think you are an idiot. Lord Orochimaru is invincible, and it is an honor to be his pawn. Listening to the argument, Gaidumaru on the side also spoke. Don't waste your energy arguing, we have already lost a lot of time last night to seal Uchiha Sasu, and it is estimated that Konoha's pursuers are about to catch up. If you don't go back quickly, it will be troublesome for them to catch up. Several people looked at each other when they heard it, and their feet accelerated and ran forward. At this moment, there was a sudden sound of breaking the air from the rear, and the next moment, a kunai nailed it to the big tree trunk in front of them. The four finally stopped and turned around. Kidomaru said, It's really there. Konoha guys, I didn't expect you to do it so quickly. At the same time, the group of Naruto who had finally caught up also jumped over and stopped in front of them. A no-shikacho trio, Neji, Kiba, Naruto, a total of 6 people. Due to the long journey, the state is not at the best moment. When the 4 of them looked across, they were just a few kiddos younger than him, and they suddenly laughed. Jirobo sneered. Is there no one in Konoha village, the first of the 5 great ninja villages? You actually sent you little devils to chase us. Or is it that Konoha looks down on the 4 of us so much? There was a strong momentum, and this momentum definitely belonged to the level of Jonin. Shikamaru felt this momentum at first glance, and his face changed suddenly. The secret was not good, the strength of these guys is so strong. It's not inferior to Jonin. Although I had been mentally prepared before, I was still shocked at this moment. In contrast, Naruto and Neji are much calmer. Neji's own strength is already very strong. Even in the face of Jonin, with his strong Kekkei Genkei, there is no need to panic, and Naruto is because he did not put these people in my eyes, so I don't really care. At this moment, seeing that he has seen the sealed wooden barrel behind Jirobo, stand up and say lightly, hand over Zuiyu. Otherwise I will kill you. In the plain tone, there is a strong killing intent and the momentum suddenly surprised the 4 people on the opposite side. This brat looked much more powerful than the others. Seeing his blonde hair and blue eyes, he immediately recognized him. You are Uzumaki Naruto, Kidomaru exclaimed. So what? Naruto was slightly surprised. He didn't expect that these Orochimaru subordinates actually knew him. Did they remember him in the Konoha collapse plan? But he didn't want Gatonmaru to hurriedly said to the 4 people around him. Jirobo, Tayuya, Zukin, the 3 of you take Uchiha Sasu away first. I'll hold them here. Let's go. After he finished speaking, he spit out the pile of golden metal texture as kunai, flying towards Naruto and others, and the speed is extremely fast. It turned out that Orochimaru had warned his subordinates early that if he encountered Uzumaki Naruto, he must not be careless, so at this moment, Kidomaru decided to stay and hold them for a while in order to complete the task, and only hope that Sayu can get Orochimaru safely there. When the other 3 heard it, their expressions couldn't help changing, but when they thought that they came out this time to complete the task, if the task could not be completed, Orochimaru would not be able to spare them after returning, and their future would not be guaranteed. Thinking of this, the other 3 rushed out after biting Kiba. Chapter 110 Overwhelming Battle. Seeing Gaidumaru blocking his 6 people with the power of 1 person, Naruto couldn't help but praise. Although you are Orochimaru's subordinate, I really admire your courage to stay alone and stop us regardless of everything. It's just you have this strength. Haha, since I'm left alone, of course I'm sure to stop you. What if there are 6 of you? I can still kill you. Gotongmaru felt guilty, but his mouth was tough. At this time, Shikamaru said beside Naruto, "This person is very strong, we can't delay time here." Since they resorted to this delay, then we also send people to stay and entangle him, and others continue to chase. Naruto nodded. "Okay, you go after the others, I'll just stay." Shikamaru frowned. "I think it's better for me to stay. Naruto, you are the main force in our team, you mustn't waste your time here." "Yeah, let me stay," Neji also said at this time. After listening to the two of them, Naruto shook his head and said, "No, this guy is very powerful, I can only deal with him this time. I think so, you go catch up with the others first, and then implement the Shikamaru delay plan. Come over after I have taken care of this guy. Then I will be working with you to kill the others." Shikamaru listened, frowned and thought for a while, thinking that this is also a good solution, but the key is whether Naruto can quickly solve this guy. Naruto saw what he was thinking and smiled. "Go after him. Although this guy is powerful, I can still defeat him." Ino looked at Naruto's self-confidence, and suddenly became crazy, and shouted to Shikamaru, "Naruto, he is the heir of the 6th generation of Hokage. His strength is obvious to all. What are you worried about?" "Ah," said, looking at Naruto with a look of admiration. Shikamaru listened and nodded. Neji and Choji also nodded in agreement, and then they chased out. "Do you want to leave? It's not that easy." Seeing how many people were leaving, Gotongmaru hurriedly shot out countless sharp kunai. Seeing this, Neji stopped behind the crowd and shouted, "Revolving heaven." There was a screeching noise, and all the kunai were bounced away, followed by Shikamaru and the others quickly leaving behind him. Gotongmaru was in a hurry to see this, but there was nothing he could do, because Naruto had already rushed towards him at this time. Naruto doesn't actually need much strength to deal with Gotongwan. His current strength is not afraid of Kage-level powerhouses in the state of the curse mark, let alone Gotongwan. And after many battles, his grasp of the battle situation has become more mature. In this battle, he will make a quick decision. At this time, when Gotongmaru saw that Naruto's shot was so fast, he had a feeling that he couldn't resist, and he was shocked and hurriedly stepped back. But he retreated fast, and Naruto chased faster. Before he could get away from him, Naruto punched him, only to hear a bang. Gotongmaru stretched out his hand to see that it resisted Naruto's full-strength blow. He took this to fly back, and without hesitation, he opened the spell seal, and immediately tried his best to be in the second state of the spell. Naruto frowned slightly, and Gotongmaru's momentum at the moment has increased greatly. The strength of this chakra is much stronger than that of ordinary Jonin, but Naruto doesn't care at all. Compared with the power of the curse mark, his own but much stronger than them. In order to speed up the battle, Naruto saw that he had opened the curse seal, and he no longer hid his strength. He directly opened the curse seal, and a huge chakra suddenly emitted, and a wave of air was instantly set off around Naruto. Feeling this powerful chakra, Kidomaru backed away in fright, and said in shock, "This chakra is not inferior to Lord Orochimaru." "You bastard, how can you have such a powerful force?" Kidomaru was shocked beyond measure. If he had known that his strength was almost the same as that of Lord Orochimaru, he would not have dared to stay. Naruto's figure flashed, and before he could come back to his senses, he rushed over immediately. The figure almost turned into a golden light and shadow, and came to Gotongmaru in an instant. Rasengan. He stretched out his hand, and a violently spinning chakra ball slammed into it instantly. Although Gotongmaru's speed and strength have increased a lot in the state of the curse, but facing Naruto, this action is faster and fiercer than him. In front of him, he could only dodge awkwardly. Boom! Dangerously avoiding Naruto's Rasengan, Kidomaru just rejoiced, and Naruto's body was close to him like a gangrene attached to the bone. Kidomaru, who was forced to do nothing, had a unique secret technique but couldn't use it, so he could only be beaten passively. Although he has so many arms, his physical skills are really not good. After being approached by Naruto, he was kicked and flew out just after parrying a few moves. Watching Kitamaru being kicked into the air, Naruto hand sealed with both hands and immediately used the shadow clone technique. In the bang, dozens of shadow clone rose into the sky, and each shadow clone held a Rasengan in his hand. The strong energy was like a sword that pierced the sky, and Maru was shocked. He quickly wiped it on the corner of his mouth and quickly made a few seals. When the person was in the air, he hurriedly shouted, "The art of psychic." Boom! With a loud noise, a huge five-flowered spider appeared out of thin air in midair, accompanied by a large amount of smoke, and Naruto's many shadow clones collided immediately, and the Rasengan in his hand hit the big spider's body. Boom boom boom. Another violent cyclone stirred, blue light flashed in midair, the airwaves danced wildly, and the big spider roared, and just after it appeared, it was already used by his master as a stand-in, and was smashed into disbelief by dozens of Rasengans. Boom! The big spider swirled upwards for dozens of meters, and finally disappeared into the air as a puff of white smoke. At this time, Maru had already escaped for a while, but he had just landed on the ground, and his feet had not yet stepped on the ground. His abdomen suddenly cramped, and with a bang, he stared at Naruto not far away in disbelief. The main body, look under him again, an arm stretched out from the ground at some point, and the extremely violent Rasengan was whistling and spinning in his abdomen. Boom! Like the big spider just now, he swirled and flew out, bang 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 3 times, breaking 3 huge trees in a row, and then fell into the ruins. Naruto smiled slightly, turned and ran in the direction where Shikamaru and the others left just now. As for the arm that suddenly emerged from the ground just now, of course, it was the shadow clone that Naruto had arranged in advance. Under the overwhelming strength, Kidomaru's energy was all in danger on the ground. For Naruto under the ground, the sneak attack of the clone was too late to respond. So far, only 10 minutes have passed since the battle. Naruto jumped quickly between the trees, thinking in his heart that if he hadn't set up clones in the ground before each battle, it would have been difficult to quickly deal with the enemy. It can be seen that the shadow clone technique is well used. An insane ninjutsu. Chapter 111 Cooperate. Just when Naruto solved Kidomaru, Neji, Kiba, Shikamaru and others had already caught up with others. It's just that the other party left Jirobo to block him, and the one who restrained him became Neji. When Naruto arrived at the place where Neji Jirobo was, the two were fighting hard. Jirobo had already entered the second state of curse and seal. He had a headache, and Jirobo was also very afraid of Neji's physical skills, and didn't dare to be approached by him. At this time, after the attack of the two ended, they were standing on the spot facing each other. Thinking of this, he held his breath and quietly sneaked over. Neji's Byakugan immediately observed Naruto's approach, and he couldn't help but smile because he couldn't deal with Jirobo, and the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. When Naruto sneaked past, he already felt the feeling of being penetrated by Byakugan, so he already knew that Neji had found his whereabouts. Quietly, Naruto did not rush up directly, but spared a large bay to the side and sneaked to the rear of Jirobo. Seeing this, Neji's eyes lit up slightly. He already understood what Naruto meant. The next moment, he rushed towards Jirobo at such a fast speed that Jirobo had to retreat. If he was hit by Gentle Fist and Chakra was banned, he would be dead. So, he was very careful and saw Neji flying up, paying full attention to him, while holding the hand seal in his hand. Doden, Earth Style, Earth Dragon Thorn. Sharp soil thorns continued to stick out from under Neji's feet, and Neji kept dodging and moving, like a butterfly wearing flowers, and Jirobo couldn't do anything about him for a while. Suddenly, I don't know if Jirobo was careless, the movement of his hand suddenly stopped. Neji seized this opportunity, kicked his foot violently, and immediately patted his palm full of chakra. However, a smile appeared on Jirobo's face in the next moment. Just when Neji's body was still a few meters away from him, the seal in Jirobo's hand suddenly changed. At the same time, a circular earth wall suddenly appeared in front of Neji. Out! Doden, Earth-style, dungeon no. Rumbling, in an instant, Neji was surrounded by the circular earth wall of Jirobo. Ha ha, I finally caught you. Now you just wait for me to suck the chakra dry. Jirobo pressed one hand on the periphery of the circular earth wall, controlling the chakra that kept absorbing Neji trapped inside. His face the previous piece was colored. However, after laughing, he suddenly felt that something was wrong, because Neji's movements seemed to be a little slower this time. Although his move was a little unexpected, it was impossible to catch him so easily. Just when he was slightly puzzled, he suddenly heard a strong wind whistling in his ear, and his heart was startled. Turned around, Jirobo's fat body had no time to dodge to the side, and his chest jolted violently. Boom! Rasengan. At this moment, the voice sounded beside his ears, and within sight was Naruto's figure close at hand. Ah! A scream, Jirobo's body slammed directly into the earth wall behind him, and with a bang, the earth wall collapsed directly, and a white shadow flashed out of it. It was Neji. Neji with a smile on his face. It seems that our cooperation is not bad. You need a lot of courage to lure the enemy with your body. Neji stood beside Naruto indifferently. Byakugan stared at the dusty ruins, exhaled, and the corner of his mouth raised an arc. Naruto, I trust your strength very much. If you can't deal with him, I can't. Qualified to be the heir of Hokage. Quote. Naruto heard this. He smiled and dismissed it. At this time, the smoke gradually dissipated, and Jirobo fell to the ground with serious injuries. He doesn't have the strength to fight anymore. Naruto, go after the others. I'll stay and deal with him, Neji said. Naruto nodded, without hesitation, and ran straight ahead. At this moment, Shikamaru, Choji, Ino, and Kiba have just caught up with Tayuya and Sakin. With 4-2, their own side has the upper hand in numbers, but their strength is worlds apart. However, Ino Shikacho, the cooperation of the trio is very powerful. Even if the opponent is Jonin, it is not necessarily a failure. Tayuya, you take Uchiha Sasuke away, and I'll intercept them. Zuo-jin looked at the 4 Shikamaru and said to Tayuya beside him. Okay, don't you die. Duo-yu also said something and rushed forward. Shikamaru watched her go away and gave Kiba a wink. Kiba understood and immediately chased after her. At this moment, a familiar figure suddenly appeared in the field, and several people were slightly taken aback. Naruto, why are you here soon? Ino exclaimed. Zuo-jin saw Naruto appear. His face changed slightly, and he said in shock, You little brat, did you get rid of Kitamaru so quickly? Impossible. You must have sneaked over here. Kitamaru usually looks like this guy. It looks very reliable. I didn't expect it to be so unreliable this time. Seeing how a few people were just catching up with him, Naruto glanced at Tayuya, who was constantly walking away, and said to them, Kiba, Shikamaru, Choji, Ino, the 4 of you stay and deal with him quickly. I'll go first. Chase that woman, and Neji has taken out that fat man and is rushing over now. After Naruto finished saying this, he flew up without waiting for everyone to agree. Kiba just wanted to leave, but after hearing Naruto's words, he had to stay, but he secretly said in his heart, this guy Naruto has become so powerful. There is actually a kind of feeling that people can't help but listen to his command. Heard Naruto say that Jirobo had been dealt with, and his face could not help but turn pale with shock. If he said that, Gatong Maru was also likely to be killed. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel a little scared. These little devils look nothing. The appearance of strength, but the fact is so unfavorable to himself and others. Do you want to give up the mission and run away this time? But then he shook his head again, not to mention how Lord Orochimaru would punish him after he went back. Now that he was faced with the sullen escape of a few goblins, he couldn't accept that embarrassment. Come on, let me see what you are good at. Zuo-jin was aroused by the desire to win, and shouted at several people. And Naruto, at this time, has quickly caught up. Taiyu also carried Sayu on his back, and his speed of action was somewhat affected. Under Naruto's full pursuit, he was caught up in a short while. Damn it, this kid is so fast. Duo Yuya scolded, looked around, but found that there was no way out. Just when she was about to stop and fight to the death, a figure suddenly appeared beside her. Chapter 112 Sasuke is unblocked. As soon as this figure appeared, the look on her face was a joy. Kimimaro-sama. She saw a young man in a gray and white robe standing in front of her. His face was pale and his clothes were very similar to Orochimaru's usual dress. This person was Kimimaro. Naruto leapt over and saw Kimimaro appearing beside Yuya, and he punched him without thinking. Kimimaro glanced at Naruto slightly, and when he saw that he was moving quickly, a hint of surprise flashed across his face. This brat's strength is not bad, Kimimaro thought to himself, but this time he came to complete the mission of Lord Orochimaru. Although he really wanted to fight Naruto, he could only give up. The next moment, he suddenly flicked his arm, and suddenly several phalanxes shot out of his fingers, whistling at Naruto's face. Naruto was in the air, hurriedly pulled out Kuuuchiha in front of him and quickly blocked it, but his body was already blocked by the force of the rebound, and he stepped back and fell to the ground. Leave Uchiha Sagat over to me. You stay and stop him for a moment, Kimimaro said succinctly. Also thought that Kimimaro was blocking Naruto, but he didn't expect him to let himself stay. He was helpless, but he had no choice. Kimimaro's strength was second only to Lord Orochimaru, and he was the first choice for Lord Orochimaru's next container, just because he had to be given up because he was seriously ill. It can be said that his strength has surpassed the elite Jonin, and even in the face of Kage level, he has the strength to fight. You can never defy him. Yes, Taiyu also responded, and handed the wooden barrel sealed with Sasu to Kimimaro. Kimimaro took the barrel and immediately fled away. Naruto looked anxiously, the next moment he hand-sealed with both hands, and immediately separated out a shadow clone. The main body flew towards Kimimaro. Duo Yu also saw that Naruto had just assigned a shadow clone to deal with him, and was annoyed in his heart that this kid dared to underestimate himself. Although his strength is the last among the four, he is not something a kid like you can despise. The art of psychic. The next moment, she suddenly bit her finger and used a psychic technique. 3 grotesque human-shaped ghosts appeared in front of her with a few bangs, then took out a wooden flute and played it across her lips. Just as Naruto was about to leave, a strange music came from his ears, and then the 3 tall ghosts attacked his body one after another. Get out of the way! Naruto shouted softly, facing the 3 seemingly powerful monsters, but he directly punched one, and then kicked the other, just before the 3rd monster was close. At the moment, he stretched out his palm directly, and Rasengan issued it, slammed into the abdomen of the ghost, and blasted it out. With 3 bangs, the 3 ghosts disappeared, and this move was quickly cracked by Naruto. Taiyu also changed his face. He didn't expect Naruto's skills to be so fast. The 3 ghosts couldn't entangle him with his own psychic skills. At this time, Naruto's clone also attacked her. Although it was only half of the main body's strength, this clone was also very powerful in Yuya's eyes. She had to step back and activate the spell without hesitation. Print status 2. It's so strong. Just being a clone is hard to resist. Yuya had just avoided the Rasengan attack of Naruto's clone, wiped his sweat and muttered to himself. However, after opening the second spell, she didn't care about Naruto's clone at all, and directly chased up to Naruto's main body at full speed. In the state of Curse Seal 2, her speed is also very fast, and it is difficult for Naruto clone to catch up for a while. Naruto kept chasing Kimimaro in front of him. Although Kimimaro was moving fast, he was also approached by Naruto while he was carrying a wooden barrel. Kimimaro has noticed that Naruto's breath is getting closer and closer, and his heart is quietly excited. For him, if Naruto catches up, it is also very good to be able to fight. In this way, Naruto is chasing Kimimaro, Taiyu is also chasing Naruto, and Naruto's clone is also chasing Yuya, and a few people started a chase battle for a while. Seeing that he was about to leave the forest ahead, Naruto became more and more anxious. With Kimamaro's speed, if he kept running away, it would be difficult for him to catch up for a while. Fortunately, just as Naruto was moving fast, Kimamaro in front suddenly stopped, and Naruto immediately stopped in front of him. After Kimamaro stopped, he murmured, "Is it time to seal it? Then let her come out. I want to see what the speciality of the container chosen by Lord Orochimaru is." The next moment, Kimamaro directly ignored Naruto in front of him, and made a few seals to unseal the wooden barrel that sealed Sayu. Naruto frowned and didn't go up to fight him, just wait and see what happened. He also wanted to ask why Zuoyu had defected after she came out. Boom! With a loud bang, the sealed wooden barrel exploded directly, and a powerful chakra escaped out. Naruto felt that this chakra was slightly different from his own magic seal immortal power, and he felt a little strange in his heart. It stands to reason that after the spiritual power of Orochimaru in the curse seal is removed, the remaining natural chakra should be of the same nature, but at this time, the chakra of Sayu that he feels is somewhat different from his own magic seal immortal power. In contrast, his own spell seal immortal power should be more pure and strong. The breeze blew, and Zuoyu's figure slowly emerged. At this moment, her face was covered with lines of fire Yuhi's curse marks, and the powerful chakra on her body could not be controlled and spread out everywhere, surrounding her. Stir up a storm. After Kimamaro saw Zuoyu, he frowned slightly and said lightly, "I'm much weaker than me. If it wasn't for me being seriously ill, how could Master Orochimaru have such a weak body?" Zuoyu had just woken up at this time, and seemed a little dazed about everything around her, but after a while, she had already reacted and looked around. Seeing Naruto on the side, her expression couldn't help but be stunned. "Naruto, why are you chasing here?" Naruto said with a cold face. "You stupid girl, do you know how stupid you are? What's the use of pursuing such a misguided power?" Naruto's scolding made Zuoyu stunned for a while, but then she suddenly laughed, looked at Naruto in dissatisfaction, and shouted, "Naruto, don't you feel that I am strong now? Do you have the power of Orochimaru? You also have Orochimaru's spell, why can't I have it? All I have to do is control the power of the spell for my use. What's wrong with that?" Hearing her ignorant words, Naruto was even more angry. The power of the curse seal is not so easy to control, you have to go through time to control it, and using the drug seal to forcibly stimulate it like this will only affect your body. Harmful, you know. Zuoyu was at a loss for words for a while. Naruto's words made sense, but her impetuous heart couldn't wait for the powerful force, so she couldn't help but retorted, "I don't have that much time. If you can get strength quickly, what if there are side effects?" "I will." Chapter 113 Against Kimamaro. Hearing Zuoyu's naive and angry words, Naruto was angry and helpless, wishing to slap her and wake her up. But at this moment, Kimamaro had stopped in front of Naruto, looked at him lightly and said, "Uzumaki Naruto, right? Uchiha Sasu is the person that Orochimaru-sama wanted, and if you want to take her away, you must pass me first." After a pause, he said to Zuoyu without looking back, "It's not too late. I'll drag it here, you can go to Lord Orochimaru as soon as possible." Zuoyu glanced at Naruto. Her face flashed a complex and unspeakable reluctance, but when she thought of the wish in her heart, she bit Kiba suddenly, turned around and ran out. Seeing Zuoyu resolutely leave, Naruto's heart tightened, but she didn't expect that she would still leave when she came in person. "Zoe, what the hell is going on in your mind?" At this moment, Naruto Chunin couldn't help bursting out with anger. "Does he really want you to go to Orochimaru like the plot? Do not. No way. With me, I will never let you fall into the dark abyss again." Looking at the back of Zuoyu quickly leaving, Naruto said silently in his heart. "Okay, she's gone, the next is the battle between us, as long as you can defeat me, you can catch up." Kimamaro waved his arm, and with a swoosh a white bone blade stretched out from his palm out, shaking and pointing at Naruto. At the same time, an oppressive aura spread out. Naruto had no intention of fighting. Facing Kimamaro's inspiring aura, he knew that he would not be able to defeat him for a while, and he could only last until the last moment of his life, but by that time Sasu was already far away, and it would be even more difficult to catch up. Chasing after him, also came to the arena. Seeing the two of them fighting each other, she immediately came to Kimamaro's side and prepared to fight Naruto with him. The arrival of Tayuya made Naruto frown slightly. It was just a dying Kimamaro that was easy to deal with. If Tayuya also used demonic illusion to interfere, he would definitely be in a disadvantageous situation. Trapped by demonic illusion, Kimamaro will definitely hit him. Thinking of this, he couldn't help being secretly vigilant, and at this moment, his clone had already caught up. If you use Shadow Clone's crowd tactics, you won't be able to dominate in front of Kimamaro, a master of physique, and the result is just a waste of chakra. It seems that I can only let Shadow Clone entangle Tayuya, prevent her from having the opportunity to use demonic illusion, and let her own body quickly solve Kimamaro. Thinking of this, Naruto did not hesitate, hand seal with both hands, and very skillfully released a futon wind-style ninjutsu. Futon wind-style wind cut. Quote. An invisible wind blade instantly appeared out of thin air and slashed towards Kimamaro and the two of them. When the two saw this, their figures flashed upwards, and they quickly avoided this ninjutsu move. At the same time, the two of them were not idle in midair. Kimamaro stretched out his 10 fingers, and the 10-finger piercing bullets were released. The powerful phalanx shot towards Naruto. Seeing this, Duo Yuya couldn't help showing a look of joy, and hurriedly blew the flute on his lips, and demonic illusion was about to come out. But Naruto's clone had already been on guard against her demonic illusion, and when he saw it, he rushed towards her desperately, and at the same time threw out several kunai shuriken. Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique. Swish swish. 1 for 2, 2 for 4, 4 for 8. An instant, the rain of hidden weapons surrounded Kimamaro and the two of them. They had nowhere to hide. Duo-yu could only give up the operation and use the flute in his hand to block the hidden weapons one by one. Kimamaro was covered with a layer of body surface. The hard bone, the hidden weapon fell to the ground as soon as it fell on him. At this moment, before Naruto could continue to attack, Kimamaro's figure in midair suddenly swooped towards Naruto, and the bone spurs in his hand danced into an afterimage. Dance of the Camellia. When Kimamaro's voice sounded in front of Naruto, Naruto was able to avoid his first round of attacks. However, compared with Kimamaro, Naruto was not as good in physical skills. He was approached by Kimamaro, hastily pulled out the kunai to resist his bone spurs. There was a crisp sound, and Naruto resisted his bone spur attack effortlessly. Sparks shot out between the two, and Naruto was attacked and retreated again and again. Finally, Kimamaro's round of attacks passed. Naruto exhaled, and his body burst back, but the kunai in his hand was full of gaps. Kimamaro's bones are so hard that even a steel kunai can't stand it. He didn't dare to be careless, and immediately used the magic seal immortal power. The surging chakra surged out, and when Kimamaro hadn't attacked again, he quickly rushed forward and launched a round of physical attack on him. Under the blessing of the immortal power of the curse seal, Naruto's speed and power have been greatly improved. Even Kimamaro was beaten back and forth for a while. Boom! With a muffled sound, he was kicked in the chest by Naruto and flew out. You guy, you're so good at physical skills. Kimamaro got up with a shocked face, but he didn't seem to be injured at all, and said in surprise. Naruto didn't answer, but told him directly with actions. The moment he just stood up, he rushed up again, stretched his arm, and a blue chakra energy ball appeared in his palm, whistling. Press Kimamaro's chest. Kimamaro was obviously shocked by Naruto's technique. He felt the powerful chakra energy inside. His expression was slightly solemn. It was too late to avoid. Naruto was faster than him at the moment. With a deep sigh, dance of the larch. Swish swish. As if a sharp blade was unsheathed, the next moment, dozens of hard bone spurs suddenly grew out of his chest, bending and covering his chest. Naruto's Rasengan slammed into the bone spur, and suddenly burst open with a bang, the spiral roaring and tearing at his bones, rubbing against the pile of bones to make Kiba's sour chirp. However, to Naruto's surprise, Kimimaro actually stood there, fighting directly with Rasengan. After a few breaths, Rasengan's energy finally dissipated, but Kimimaro's body was pushed back dozens of meters. But his chest was intact. Those bone spurs were just torn out of cracks on the surface, but there was no injury to his body. What a strong defense! Naruto was secretly shocked, but he didn't expect that even Rasengan, who had been hit all the time, couldn't knock him down. This shows how hard Kimimaro's bones are. If that's the case, then we have to increase the output. Naruto took a deep breath, and chakra gathered secretly. Chapter 114 Win. Kimimaro blocked Naruto's blow, and just as he was about to feel fortunate in his heart, there was a sudden pain in his chest. Puff! The next moment, a stream of blood spurted out of his mouth. Unbelievable, I didn't expect that I blocked the energy ball out of the body with my bones, but my body was still hurt by the spiral energy. Kimimaro looked at Naruto in shock. Curse Seal 2. Without hesitation, Kimimaro immediately entered the state of Curse Yin 2, which suppressed the physical injury, and the chakra momentum also skyrocketed again. I've suffered so much from you in vain, this time it's my turn. Kimimaro roared, and his body, which had become more burly and sturdy because of the curse mark, came from the sky like a bolt of lightning, and rushed to the ground in an instant. In front of Naruto, there was no fancy punch, but the speed reached ultimate, and before the punch arrived, a swift and violent wind rushed towards him. Naruto hurriedly backed away, facing Kimimaro's extremely skilled and fast physical movements. Although he also used the immortal power of the seal, he still didn't want to face the peak. The moment the punch was just thrown, he was already at him. Back off. However, just when Naruto was able to avoid the punch, several bone spurs suddenly grew on Kimimaro's arm, and stabbed directly into Naruto's chest over his fist. This sudden growth of bone spurs was so fast that Naruto had just noticed the danger, and with a snort, several blood flowers had already splattered on his chest. Injured. In a head-to-head battle, this is the first time Naruto has lost in the speed of the shot. Kimimaro's physical skills are already extremely powerful. After entering the state of the curse, it is even more powerful. If this battle is replaced by Gaara, a mid-talent range attack ninja, it may be better to fight, but Naruto is also a melee ninja. It is still inferior to Kimimaro in physique. The injured Naruto slammed backwards, the clothes on his chest were cut several times, and the chest was also dripping with blood. Fortunately, Naruto's speed was not too slow. Although Kimimaro's move was unexpected, it only hurt Naruto a little. Naruto quickly swallowed a blood-enhancing pill, and before he had time to bandage the wound on his chest, Kimimaro took advantage of the situation and flew up. When he was in the air, he suddenly pulled out the spine on his back and threw it towards Naruto, who was standing still. Crisis! Naruto suddenly stretched out his hand and made a shadow clone seal, and with a bang, a clone appeared beside him. Kimimaro couldn't help frowning, and secretly said, "Is this guy not hiding? Does he want to die?" With a swipe, the long spine immediately entangled Naruto on the spot. Kimimaro's face was slightly delighted, and he pulled his hand hard, trying to pull Naruto over, but Naruto's feet pressed hard, chakra clinging to the ground. Firmly motionless, Kimimaro swooped towards Naruto, flying away. At the same time, his other arm suddenly turned into a strongest hardened bone spear, and stabbed towards Naruto's body fiercely. At this moment, Naruto can no longer move, but fortunately, he has an arm that can move, and there is a clone beside him. The bone spear came from the sky, and Naruto's shadow clone suddenly stretched out his palm. A Rasengan instantly congealed, and Naruto's trapped body also stretched out his hand to increase the output of chakra. In a blink of an eye, the Rasengan it has grown to the size of a basketball. Seeing Naruto trying to use this trick again, Kimimaro sneered, "Do you want to use this trick to solve me? I want to see if your technique hits me first, or if my bone pierces you first." He is confident that with his speed and the length of his bone spear, he can definitely penetrate Naruto before the chakra ball in his hands can be pressed against him. However, Naruto's face did not change color. Within a tenth of a second, the bone spear was already in front of him, only 2 meters away from him. Go to hell. Seeing victory in sight, even Kimimaro, a dying man, couldn't help shouting excitedly. The next moment, he seemed to see Naruto being stabbed into a big hole by a bone spear. However, Naruto's body, which was infinitely close in his eyes, was suddenly replaced by a strong chakra energy in the next moment. How is this possible? Boom! The strong roar was still echoing in his ears, and Kimimaro's face was filled with an incredible look. Super Big Ball Rasengan. I saw that a Rasengan with a diameter of 2 meters appeared in front of Naruto. Kimimaro was still 2 meters away from him, but after the Rasengan with a diameter of 2 meters appeared, his body was instantly touched. So that his bone spear didn't have time to touch Naruto at all, and was blasted away by this huge spiral energy, and his body was also hit by this huge Rasengan. Boom boom boom. The strong and unparalleled spiral Chi-Jin was raging everywhere, and a violent gust of wind blew up around him. The ground in front of Naruto was directly affected by the aftermath of the Chi-Jin, and it burst open in an instant. Kimimaro's whole body was enveloped by the energy of Rasengan. Although he tried his best to harden the bones all over his body at that moment, he was still unable to resist the power of this super Rasengan. Boom! The next instant, the incomparably powerful spiral force directly knocked Kimimaro out. His body spun and flew over a distance of hundreds of meters. Along the way, he broke countless trees and dragged 100 meters away from the ground. The long ravine, along the way, was stirred up by a piece of flying dust. Call. Naruto let out a long breath, feeling a little tired. At that moment, he spent almost all his energy on controlling and maintaining this huge Rasengan. Fortunately, under the immortal power of the curse seal, it was not too difficult. This should beat him. Naruto could not help wiping his sweat secretly. The face of Kimimaro's tyrannical bone defense, the only way to face it is with a more powerful attack. On the other hand, Duo Yu, who was fighting with another clone, also saw this earth-shattering battle, but his mouth opened wide in shock, his face full of disbelief, and his eyes were full of fear when he looked at Naruto. This guy, chakra is so powerful. That kind of powerful ninjutsu is beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. At this moment, Naruto has become an insurmountable mountain in her eyes. Suddenly, her body froze, and Jenin couldn't help but step back. Because Naruto's eyes had already fallen on her, and at this moment, the fighting spirit in her heart instantly collapsed. You, what are you going to do? Tayuya in fear couldn't even maintain the state of curse Yanji. His strength retracted inside his body, trembling all over and kept going backwards. Naruto smiled slightly, seeing that she actually showed such a frightened expression, and only then noticed that the enemy was still a beautiful beauty. Chapter 115 Ruthless. Naruto glanced at her slightly, and flew out in the direction where Sayu left. Taiyu was also taken aback, thinking that Naruto was going to take action against him, but he didn't expect him to leave without paying any attention to him. Standing in the same place for a long time, she came back to her senses, but her heart became infinitely decadent. She thought that she had gained powerful strength and was already a leader among her peers, but today she found out that one is younger than herself. The several-year-old guy was so powerful that he not only defeated the mighty Kimimaro, but also had enough energy to continue chasing him out. The next moment, she ran quickly to where Kimimaro was, but saw that his body had been torn and twisted, blood was everywhere, and there were many broken bones around him. At this time, he was dying. Taiyu also came over and took his last breath. Kimimaro, dead. Naruto hurriedly chased after Sayu, but he didn't kill Duoyu. One was because his energy had been consumed a lot, and it would take some effort to kill Duoyu, and the other was because more than 10 minutes had passed. Now, I can't waste time staying here, otherwise I won't be able to catch up with Zuoyu. Moreover, Taiyu is only one of Orochimaru, subordinates, and his strength is not enough to pose a threat to him, so he is too lazy to kill her. Valley of the End. There may be a master in the dark. When Naruto rushed to a valley, he finally saw the figure in front of him. Zuo-yu. Naruto hurriedly called out when she saw her jump out of the forest and stopped beside the cliff. Zuo-yu turned around and looked at him blankly. Why are you still following? Zuo-yu said lightly, with no emotion in her tone. Naruto leapt in front of her in one breath, stared straight at her and said, I won't let you step into the dark. Darkness. Zuo-yu sneered disdainfully. The fire Yuhi's spell on his face had solidified into a black rune, and when he heard Naruto's words, he raised his head and shouted, as long as you can get power, what is darkness? Zhao Yu, you have to calm down. You are too extreme right now. Do you know that when you go to Orochimaru, you will be taken away by him, and your consciousness will cease to exist? Do you want that result? I know, I won't let him succeed. Zuo-yu said proudly. You are still too conceited. You don't understand the strength of the enemy at all. Naruto persuaded. When you are alone with him, no one will help you, and you will struggle alone. The expression on Zuo-yu's face changed slightly, and she suddenly smiled. Naruto, are you caring about me? Yeah, so, can you go back with me? Naruto saw that her expression seemed to be a little loose, and his tone could not help softening, and said, I can help you with anything. Zuo-yu's heart is extremely complicated. Looking at the gentle look on Naruto's face, she is very reluctant. Naruto, I really want to be with you, but my background does not allow me to be immersed in this tenderness. My mission does not allow me to go on like this. Seeing the struggling look on Zuo-yu's face, Naruto smiled and stretched out his hand. Come on, come back with me. No. Suddenly, Zuo-yu gave a snort, and pulled Naruto's arm, pulling his entire body forward, and the next moment, he suddenly raised his leg. A knee bang. With a muffled thud, Naruto couldn't help groaning, and his body flew backwards. Zuo-yu. Naruto frowned and murmured slowly as he felt the sharp pain in his abdomen in midair. Boom. The body fell to the ground, and Naruto slowly got up, his face expressionless. Zuo-yu, since you are so disobedient, then I have to force you back. The next moment, Naruto took out his kunai and came to her, his tone unquestionable. Zuo-yu's delicate body trembled slightly. At this moment, she felt an incomparably powerful sense of oppression coming from Naruto, which made her almost dare not resist. Why should I listen to you? Zuo-yu shouted, unable to bear Naruto's powerful momentum any longer. He rushed up and launched a swift attack against Naruto. Although Zuo-yu's strength increased greatly in the state of the curse, she still seemed so powerless in the face of Naruto. Let her attack how? Naruto just raised his hand lightly to block her wave after wave of offensive. Snapped. A punch hit. Naruto grabbed her fist at once, slapped her fist. He turned slightly sideways, stretched his arm, moved forward, and already caught her arm. Zoe couldn't move. You can't beat me. Naruto restrained her tightly and said lightly. Zuo-yu struggled for a while. Naruto's hands were like iron tongs, so she couldn't shake it no matter what, and in the end she couldn't help panting and sweating. You, let me go. The constant struggle made Zuo-yu trapped tighter and tighter, and in the end, Naruto almost held him in his arms. At this moment, she was ashamed and angry in her heart. She couldn't beat him, and she couldn't talk about him. Could she just submit to him? Thinking of this, Zuo-yu's heart was ruthless, and she suddenly raised her leg and attacked Naruto's crotch. Naruto was watching her struggling with great interest, but he felt that this usually stubborn girl was very cute when she was completely helpless at the moment. However, the next moment, he suddenly felt a chill down his spine, and when he was startled, he immediately noticed Zuo-yu's movements, and he couldn't help but feel furious in his heart. This dead girl, how dare you use such a sinister trick against yourself? This is to cut off the offspring. The legs clenched fiercely, and the next moment Zuo-yu's slender jade legs were controlled again. This time, Zuo-yu only landed on one foot, and she was completely unable to move. Humph! You're going too far. Naruto snorted in her ear. You actually used such a despicable trick on me. Looking at the cliff behind him, Naruto immediately had an idea. Give me down. With his feet hard, Naruto hugged her and pushed forward, jumping with her into the huge pool below the cliff. Ah! Zuo-yu exclaimed. This sudden fall made her pale in shock. Is Naruto going to fall to her own death? You bastard! Zuo-yu cursed loudly, and the next moment she felt a sudden shock in her back, followed by a loud bang, and a large stream of water drowned herself. Zuo-yu was not prepared at all. She immediately drank a few sips of water and was choked. The burning pain came from her back when she bombarded the surface of the water just now, and her brain fell into a flash. In the blank. Chapter 116. Do you like me? And Naruto was well prepared. Before entering the water, chakra secretly protected his whole body. Although the impact of the fall was very powerful, it had little effect on him. In contrast, even if Zuo-yu has a curse mark, chakra is not weak, but because she was not prepared in an emergency, the fall caught her off guard. In the deep water, the two continued to sink. Zuo-yu took a few mouthfuls of cold water and choked again, and suddenly felt a sense of suffocation. She had already scolded Naruto to death in her heart, yet she was so cruel to me. She didn't know that she had been more cruel to Naruto before. Seeing that her body was trembling constantly, and the bubbles in her mouth continued to bubble up, Naruto let go of her body and wanted her to swim up by herself. Unexpectedly, as soon as she let go, she suddenly sank. No way. Passed out. Naruto couldn't help but feel anxious. The next moment he hurriedly pulled her back again, moved his body, and rushed towards the water. Kai! He rose from the water holding her, and fell suddenly to the ground on one side. Hey, Zuo-yu, are you alright? He quickly lowered his head and asked, but Naruto couldn't help but be stunned. Because at this time Zuo-yu's eyes were closed, her breath was like a gossamer, her face was pale, and the curse had already faded away. It's not going to happen, is it? Naruto couldn't help but be surprised. Did he punish himself too much? Probing her breath, Naruto hurriedly rescued her from drowning, and pressed his hands on her chest without hesitation. Puff puff. A big mouthful of water overflowed from Zuo-yu's mouth, but she still didn't wake up. Naruto hurriedly lowered his head to give her artificial respiration, and closed her small cherry lips with a mouthful, breathing heavily. After more than 10 breaths, Zuo-yu's complexion slowly improved, but it became more and more yan-yuhi, and finally turned purple. Suddenly, she moved her hands and pushed Naruto out of her body, gasping for breath. Naruto, are you trying to suffocate me? I saw her staring at him fiercely, rubbing her chest while panting. It hurts. Doesn't this guy know this is a girl's sensitive part? I squeezed so hard just now, it must be broken. In fact, her consciousness just now fell into a blank moment because of drowning, but after the first spit of water was spit out, her consciousness had returned to her body, but Naruto was squeezing vigorously at that time. As she was focusing on her sensitive parts, her brain was caught in another crash at that time, and as a result, even Naruto's lips came up to give her artificial respiration, and she didn't have time to stop it. However, at the moment when the two's lips touched, Sayu only felt an electric current spread through her body. She completely lost the ability to think in her mind, and was kissed by Naruto. What should I do? At that time, she hesitated for a while, but she was slowly immersed in the realm where the lips and teeth of the two met. She only felt that at this moment, she was so close to Naruto. Completely immersed in the breath of Naruto. However, after a while, Zuo-yu was finally blown away by Naruto, and she forcibly pushed him away. At this moment, a strong reluctance rose in her heart. The girl's mind is so complicated. You're finally awake. After being pushed away, Naruto couldn't help but be overjoyed, but then his face turned stern again, and he said viciously, just now this is just a small lesson for you. See if you dare. So capricious. At this time, Zuo-yu was Yuhi's face, staring at him blankly. The next moment, she finally came back to her senses and said in a complicated tone, "How on earth are you going to let me go?" Hearing that she was still so stubborn, Naruto flashed in front of her again. "I said, I won't let you leave again. I will do what I say." Seeing Naruto's determined look on his face, Zuiyu's perseverance was also disintegrating little by little. "What should I do? What should I do?" Zuoyu couldn't help but raised her head and looked at the sky, speechless for a long time. Suddenly, the sky was covered with dark clouds, and a little bit of rain quietly fell on the shoulders of the two of them. Bowing her head, Zuoyu finally asked softly, "Naruto, do you like me?" "What?" Naruto froze for a moment. "I don't have a home in Konoha anymore, and if you don't like me either, I'm really alone. You know what? Every night, I wake up in my sleep, that night of the genocide, I'll always be I can't forget it, so I kept pushing myself to become stronger, to become better, to kill Uchiha Itachi, and to revive the Uchiha clan. Only in this way can I comfort my parents, the spirit of my clan. Naruto, the pain of losing everything alone, I can't bear it anymore." Zuoyu couldn't help grabbing his shoulders and hissed. Seeing her drenched and pale in pain, Naruto couldn't help but feel a hint of pity, stretched out his hand, slowly embraced her in his arms, and brought his lips slowly to her ear. "Zuiyu, I will seal your pain. I will not leave you alone in the future." Zuoyu's body couldn't help shaking, and then she suddenly raised her head in surprise. "Naruto, so you like me?" "Yeah." Naruto nodded. "I thought to myself, if I don't nod my head again, I'm afraid I really won't be able to make you look back." Hearing this, Zuoyu's face flashed with joy, and her heart was extremely sweet. "It's raining, come back with me." Naruto helped her up. Zuoyu leaned on his shoulder, listening to his words. Her heart suddenly became extremely soft. Vengeance, the pursuit of power, and so on, have become light and light at this moment. "Naruto, don't lie to me," Zuiyu murmured softly, letting him carry him away from here. However, at this moment, a hoarse laughter suddenly sounded above the two of them. "He, it's really wonderful. Naruto-kun, I didn't expect you to say such beautiful words." The two looked up and saw two figures standing there on the cliff above the valley, looking down at them. It is Orochimaru and Kabuto. At this time, Orochimaru, who had just changed his body and had recovered most of his strength, was waiting for the news that his subordinates would bring back Zuiyu, but he didn't expect to wait for a long time without results. But did not want to see Naruto convincing Sayu when he came to the Valley of the End. He didn't expect that Uchiha Sasu actually likes Uzumaki Naruto. This surprised him, and he secretly miscalculated. Under normal circumstances, with Sayu's personality, even if everyone from Konoha was dispatched together, she would not be able to persuade her determination. Convinced. Is the emotion of love really so powerful? Chapter 117 Call for Help. Orochimaru. Sayu's heart tightened, and she couldn't help showing a look of alertness on her face. "Zhao Yu, you really disappointed me." Orochimaru looked down at the two of them high, with a regretful expression on his face, with a hint of mockery at the corner of his mouth, and said contemptuously, "A girl with a weak mind like you. What kind of power do you want to pursue? In my opinion, you can only achieve nothing." Saying that, Orochimaru smiled regretfully. Sayu was unmoved after hearing this, and said lightly, "Orochimaru, don't use aggressive tactics, this is a decision I made by myself, you have no right to interfere." "Naruto, let's go back," said. Zuoyu hugged Naruto's arm and turned to leave. Naruto admired Zuiyu's change very much, and the girl was finally persuaded to come back by herself. She finally gave up the power to walk into the dark. However, how could Orochimaru give up so easily? Seeing that the two were about to leave, Orochimaru and Kabuto jumped off the cliff directly, tapped their feet on the rock wall, and they came to the two in a few ups and downs, blocking their way. Naruto's face sank. "Orochimaru, are you still not giving up?" Kabuto stood up, pulled out his kunai and confronted Naruto. "Uchiha Seijutsu, we are bound to win. Unless you can defeat me and Orochimaru-sama. Naruto was silent. His current state was not very good. The fighting and chasing along the way had consumed too much of his chakra and energy. If it was in his prime, he was not afraid of the half-crippled Orochimaru and Kabuto, but at this time his chakra is less than half. Zuiyu also saw that Naruto's state was not very good, and she also guessed that Naruto must have put in a lot of effort to catch up with her along the way, and she felt both self-blame and sweetness in her heart. If it wasn't for being so self-willed, how could so many things happen? What's the matter, Naruto-kun? What about your previous aura? Why don't you talk? Kabuto laughed and said, I think you have insufficient chakra. Naruto heard the words. He pulled Zuoyu behind him, stepped forward and said, you can try. Okay, I've been wanting to beat you for a long time. Kabuto yelled and rushed over regardless of Orochimaru's approval. Naruto turned on the curse imprint instantly, but his brows could not help but wrinkle, because he found that the power of the curse imprint was getting smaller and smaller, no longer as powerful as it was at the beginning. It seems that he has used it too many times today. It consumes too much power. At this time, Orochimaru suddenly said, Kabuto, take care of Sasu first. As for Naruto, leave him alone. To avoid other mistakes, Orochimaru had already planned to attack Sasu directly. In his capacity as Sannin, with Kabuto to deal with Sayu, this is enough to show that his style of acting is unscrupulous. Sayu knew that her strength was not enough, and faced Orochimaru, and the two of them had no power to fight. In order not to burden Naruto, she decisively used the curse mark, and the fire Yuhi-colored runes gradually climbed up her white cheeks, and the double Tomo Sharingan it also opens in an instant, hand seal with both hands, Chidori sends out. Plan to strike first. Lightning poured into her left hand, and her figure turned into a streamer, rushing towards Kabuto in an instant, hitting his chest. Facing Zuoyu's incomparably fast move, Kabuto didn't dare to take it hard, and lightly stepped on his feet, narrowly avoiding her thrust. Naruto saw Zuoyu's movements, hurriedly hand-sealed with both hands, and shouted at the same time, Sayu! Come back! The art of psychic! One hand wiped on the chest, a little blood stained from the chest that Kimimaro had scratched before, and slapped it on the ground, chakra poured out. Bang bang bang. Hold them for a while for me, please. Huge white smoke rose, and after a while, 3 huge toads appeared in the valley. It was Toad Wentai, Toad Jien, Toad Guang. Both Kabuto and Orochimaru hurriedly flew back, and their faces changed drastically. No, they're running. Kabuto, help me hand seal. Orochimaru cried. The art of psychic. With a loud bang, Wand Snake appeared. Naruto, it looks like you're in great danger. You actually want to summon the 3 of us at the same time. Toad Bunta said with a leisurely expression, smoking a big cigarette holder. Naruto pulled Sayu's back and quickly jumped from the back of Gao Wentai to the cliff at the top of the valley, and shouted at the same time, no way, this time I can only run away in embarrassment. You just need to drag me for a minute. A minute, no problem. Toad Wentai squinted his eyes and let out a breath of smoke, then pulled out the huge short knife and held it in his hand. The 2 of Orochimaru were also standing on top of Wand Snake at the moment. Wand Snake saw the 3 big toads on the opposite side, and immediately changed his expression, shouting, Bastard Orochimaru, I can't deal with the 3 of them alone. Orochimaru stared straight at Naruto's retreating backs, and shouted viciously, don't try to run away. Before he finished speaking, he saw his neck stretched out suddenly, directly over Taniguchi, and appeared above the backs of Naruto and the 2 of them. At the same time, he opened his mouth and spit out a long sword. Come fly. Zuoyu was being pulled by Naruto and ran away quickly. Looking back, she suddenly found that the long sword with a length of 100 meters was stabbing Naruto like a bolt of lightning. She couldn't help but exclaimed, be careful. Naruto had already sensed the crisis behind him, and when Sayu reminded him, he quickly hand-sealed with both hands. The art of shadow clone. Another running Naruto appeared, and I saw him pull up Naruto's body and one of Sayu's arms, and slammed forward. Kai. The next moment, the long sword pierced through the clone's body, and the two of Naruto just got out of danger. The two who were thrown out by the clones started running again. At this time, Orochimaru's long sword finally came to an end and could no longer move forward. Toadbunta and the others just held them back. Huh, I finally escaped successfully. Naruto breathed a little, his heart pounding a little too fast. At that moment, if he hadn't used Shadow Clone, he would have been pierced by Orochimaru. And Orochimaru, who was at the bottom of the valley, retracted his head, his face gloomy. Damn Uzumaki Naruto, how could he come up with such a temporary solution? Orochimaru scolded fiercely and said to Kabuto, "This operation is cancelled, let's go back to." Seeing Orochimaru's gloomy face, Toadbunta laughed, slashed over and shouted, "What's the matter? Did that kid Naruto escape successfully? Orochimaru is still a Sannin because of you. You can't even chase a kid." One snake twisted his body, avoiding Toadbunta's knife. Orochimaru's face was sinking like water, and he directed one snake's tail to sweep over, avoiding the three big toads. He and Kabuto both jumped back quickly, leaving the Valley of the End. Chapter 118 Meet Again. Getting away from Orochimaru's pursuit, Naruto still didn't care. He went all the way at full speed, following the route he had just come over, and galloped all the way towards Konoha village. "Naruto, are you alright?" Zuiyu asked worriedly when she saw Naruto panting and sweating profusely. "It's okay, just a little tired." Naruto showed her a reassuring smile and continued to move forward. Suddenly, he stumbled under his feet and almost fell to the ground. "What's wrong with you, Naruto?" Zuiyu looked shocked, and hurriedly supported him. Looking at his increasingly pale face, she couldn't help but feel extremely anxious. Naruto smiled bitterly. "The arm was scratched just now, I didn't expect that the sword was poisonous." He rolled up the sleeve of his left arm, revealing a blue-black sword mark on his small arm. Although Naruto had used Shadow Clone to avoid Orochimaru's straight stab just now, he still accidentally cut a small wound on his arm. It was just this wound that allowed the poison from the sword to enter his body. Zuiyu looked at it and couldn't help feeling very distressed, tears welling up in her eyes. "Naruto, how are you doing now? I'll help you suck the poison out." Saying that, she opened Cherry's small mouth without hesitation and kissed the wound on his arm. A soft and moist touch came, and Naruto watched as she lowered her head and kept sucking blood for herself, and shook her head. He smiled and said, "It's useless, Zuoyu, the poison has already entered my body, and I can't get it out. You go back to Konoha and call a medical ninja to detoxify me. This poison can slowly numb my body and make I can't move." Zuiyu raised her head, tears kept coming from the corners of her eyes, and the little bit of Yin Yuhi's blood on her lips made her even more pear blossoms and rain, causing people to pity, but she stubbornly shouted, "No, I'll carry you back. You will be chased by Orochimaru." Naruto pushed her and said, "No, I'm not going. Let's go together. You said you wouldn't leave me." Zuoyu lifted Naruto, carried him on his back, and walked forward. Naruto's heart warmed slightly, seeing how persistent she was. She no longer shied away, and let her carry her on her back. Orochimaru has Toadbunta and the others dragging them, so hopefully they won't be caught up. Did he know, the two Orochimaru had withdrawn. Otherwise, I wouldn't let Zuoyu go back first and stay behind. At this moment, a figure in front of them suddenly appeared in the sight of the two of them. Naruto's complexion couldn't help changing, and he hurriedly called in Zuiyu's ear, "Get around that person. Don't be discovered by her." Zuoyu took a closer look, but saw a long-haired girl with a brown shawl from Yuhi coming towards her. "It is Tayuya." Hearing Naruto's words, she quickly turned around and wanted to leave, only to be discovered by the other party. "Uchiha Seijutsu," Tayuya exclaimed. At this time Seijutsu also saw clearly that the other party was actually one of the four Otogakure. Naruto hurriedly jumped off Sayu and stood there waiting for Taiyu to approach. Uzumaki Naruto. As soon as he arrived in front of Sasu, Taiyu saw Naruto jumping down from behind her, took a deep breath and let out a soft snort. Zuo-Yu's body tightened, her face full of alertness. "Tayuya, have you seen it? Sasu has been chased back by me. Your mission failed. If you don't want to die, go back to Orochimaru to take the blame. I won't kill you because you are a girl." Naruto. He pulled out his kunai and stood in front of her indifferently, a powerful aura enveloped her. Zuo-Yu was also taken aback. He didn't expect Zuo-Yu to be successfully rescued by him, and it seemed that he was very relaxed. It was terrible. In an instant, she felt a sense of retreat. Suddenly, she frowned slightly, feeling that something was wrong, because just now she clearly saw that this guy jumped off Uchiha Zuo-Yu's back. Why did he climb onto Zuo-Yu's back? "Are you injured?" At the next moment, Tayuya suddenly smiled. Naruto's expression was indifferent. He quietly grabbed Zuo-Yu's hand, and said, "I've suffered a little injury, nothing major. What's wrong? Do you want to take me back?" Tayuya's expression changed, and Naruto said to Zuo-Yu again, "Zuo-Yu, since that's the case, you can go back first. I'll stay and play with her first, and catch up later." Before Zuo-Yu could speak, Naruto squeezed her hand secretly, signaling her to be obedient. Zuo-Yu didn't want to leave at all, because Naruto was poisoned at this time, and she was afraid that he would not be able to defeat the opponent, so she just stood there motionless. Naruto frowned secretly, and then he suddenly kicked hard and punched Tayuya. Boom! Zuo-Yu was so frightened that he quickly stepped back, and Naruto slammed a punch on the tree, and the tree immediately broke in two and fell to the ground. "Come on, don't get in my way here." Naruto glared at her and said, although he suffered a little injury, he still has the ability to clean up this woman. In an instant, Zuo-Yu's tears flowed down. She knew in her heart that Naruto was only working hard for her own smooth escape, but she couldn't leave him behind. What's the point? However, if he stayed and faced with him, he would definitely be caught up by Orochimaru. At that time, all Naruto's efforts for him would be in vain. Biting Kiba, Sayu finally left under Naruto's angry eyes. "Naruto, you must not be in trouble. Otherwise, I will let the whole world be buried with you." Zuo-Yu used her usual strength to rush the road. She wished that she could instantly move to the village and move to rescue soldiers. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief after Sasu left, looked up at Tayuya with a smile. "What? I let you go, but you still haven't left." Taiyu also stood there, but looked at him with a smile. "It's so touching, Naruto-kun. You are already seriously injured. Do you still want to stay and fight for her to escape?" Zuo-Yu also suddenly smiled. "It's a pity that she is so ruthless, but she really gave up." "I'm leaving you." Naruto secretly said that it was bad, and this woman saw it. That's right, the two of them were too obvious just now. This is obviously trying to hide it. However, if you don't do this, Zuo-Yu will not leave at all. I didn't expect this to be a bad thing. And there is Orochimaru in the back. It seems that he is more fortunate and less fortunate. Did you say I was seriously injured? Then do you want to try it? Naruto looked up at her with contempt. Until the last moment, he will never give up hope. Moreover, although this poison is very troublesome, it seems to be slowly being resolved by his own body energy now. He was slightly overjoyed. It seemed that as long as it took a little more time, the toxins in the body would be dissolved, and there would be no need to worry. Moreover, I still have the last whole card. Neji and the others haven't arrived yet. Think about it now, it's almost time to come. Chapter 119 Being Held Hostage. Zuo-Yu also looked at him with a somewhat uncertain expression. Although he should trust his own judgment at this time, his strength is really terrifying. If he is really not seriously injured, wouldn't he be asking for his own death if he made a rash move? However, if you don't try it, you will be very unwilling. Such a powerful enemy can be planted in your own hands. You can't miss such a cool thing. Moreover, taking him back and bringing him to Orochimaru-sama, even if he couldn't complete the mission, it would be considered a small credit. At that time, I might be able to ask Orochimaru-sama to reduce the punishment. After hesitating for a while, Tayuya finally made his move. I saw her take out the fife, and brought it close to her lips and started to play. If he was seriously injured, it would be extremely difficult for him to break free from the bondage of demonic illusion. Curse Seal 2. Demonic Illusion Magic Sound Lock. Duoyu also instantly entered the Curse Seal 2 state. The surging chakra spread out with a burst of music. Naruto couldn't help shaking slightly, and immediately felt his own the body is somewhat involuntary. Demonic illusion is used to bind the enemy's body through sound. This technique may be useful for other ninjas, but Naruto's chakra is also very powerful. At the moment of being bound by demonic illusion, he forcibly transports chakra and spreads all over the body. A dense chakra coat, and the sound waves entering his ears are distorted by the energy of chakra, making it lose its original effect. Sonic demonic illusion cracked naturally. Duoyu also looked at the powerful chakra outside Naruto's body, and his face was shocked, and the rhythm couldn't help but stop, and exclaimed, "How is it possible? You actually cracked my demonic illusion. You are not seriously injured." Naruto smiled disapprovingly and said, "Your demonic illusion is nothing special, so why is it weird that I cracked it?" Duoyu was also shocked, took a few steps back, looked at Naruto with a very alert expression, and cold sweat broke down on his face. "Damn," Duoyu scolded reluctantly, "I didn't expect that this kid was pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger. In fact, he wasn't injured at all. He still confronted him so recklessly. Isn't this courting death? Damn boy." It turned out that he was playing with himself from beginning to end. Naruto stood there and smiled bitterly in his heart. The toxins have now penetrated into all parts of his body. Although he can still use chakra, his body has become paralyzed. At this moment, even lifting his legs and walking is a problem. I hope it can be delayed again. Take this guy for a while. Duoyu also stared at Naruto from a distance for a while, and suddenly said strangely, "Why haven't you shot yet? You bastard, are you still playing with me?" Naruto was secretly anxious in his heart, but his face was silent, and he said slowly, "I said, for the sake of being a girl, I won't kill you, just get out of here. You are discriminating against women." Duoyu was also furious, but he couldn't beat him at all, but he didn't make a move. "Do you really want to retreat?" She stared at Naruto for a while, then suddenly laughed. "I see, so you are poisoned. You have been poisoned by Orochimaru-sama's snake venom. Are you paralyzed and unable to move? So he was posing with me." Naruto frowned, secretly thinking bad, was she actually seen? "How is this going?" "I just heard," Duoyu also said. "I saw your chakra strong, but your arms are shaking. This is obviously the toxin that paralyzes Orochimaru's body muscles. Ha ha ha, it's really insidious. You brat, now I see through it. Even if you don't give me a disguise, I'll just be captured." With that said, Taiyu walked towards him, and took out a rope with him to tie Naruto. Naruto stared at her, secretly saying bad. Duoyu also approached Naruto, and seeing that he hadn't made any moves, he was more certain of his own judgment, and the smile on her face was even more dangerous. I saw that she suddenly stretched out her hand and pinched Naruto's face, and said in a sinister tone in front of him, "Boy, what I hate most is a guy like you who plays tricks and tricks. It's in my hands, let's see how I deal with you." Naruto moved his face away with difficulty, and Taiyu looked even more interesting, and couldn't help giggling. "You're moving. Why aren't you moving? Didn't you move very fast before? Why can't you even hide my hand now?" "What?" She couldn't help but follow Orochimaru's way, sticking out her tongue and licking her lips, smiling excitedly. At this moment, a crisp, startled and anxious voice suddenly sounded, "Pervert. Let go of Naruto." Naruto was delighted, it was Ino's voice. Looks like they finally caught up. Saved. Sure enough, at the same time, several other voices also sounded, "Let go of Naruto." It was Shikamaru Choji. "It's you guys." Tayuya turned his head to look, and immediately recognized a few people. It was the Konoha genin who had been chasing him at the beginning. "Where are the others?" she asked in a deep voice. Shikamaru pouted and said, "They're all dead, and now you're the only one left, so hurry up and surrender." "Damn it, he actually killed my companion." Taiyu also scolded angrily. "In this case, I also killed this kid." Saying that, she took out Kunwu and stabbed Naruto in the chest. Just at this moment, another voice suddenly came, "Kiba through Kiba." A violently swirling gust of wind rushed towards Tayuya. "It's Kiba." Seeing this, Tayuya hurriedly dragged Naruto out of the way, but the movements in his hands were also forced to be interrupted. At the same time, another figure appeared from behind her. Aware of the danger, she quickly picked up Naruto to block in front of her, and Neji's gentle fist stopped abruptly in midair. "I didn't expect you all to come. It seems that those guys have really failed." Although Taiyu also had a stronger personality, at this time he knew that he could only retreat. The next moment, she pulled Naruto and quickly stepped back. Seeing her escape, Shikamaru and the others looked anxious. When Ino saw Naruto being held hostage by the enemy, he was so worried that his tears almost fell. Neji and Kiba sighed. "The enemy is moving very fast, and with Naruto as a shield, our plan has failed." Shikamaru pondered slightly. "Let's catch up quickly, we must not let Naruto get into trouble." Duoyu also flew with Naruto for a while. Naruto was extremely helpless. He actually became a prisoner, but his heart was slightly relieved, with Neji and the others chasing. Duoyu also temporarily in order to save his life, and would not kill if she can save herself, as long as she can delay for a moment. When the toxin in her body weakens, she will be able to break free from her bondage. Thinking of this, Naruto also felt relieved. Although he was embarrassed by Duoyu's armpit, but speaking of this woman's body actually had a faint fragrance, and her body was quite soft. Chapter 120 You Feed Me. Taiyu didn't know what Naruto was thinking now, otherwise he would definitely stab him to death without hesitation. In the state of Curse Seal 2, even if she took Naruto with her, Shikamaru and the others behind her couldn't catch up. Soon, the two came to the Valley of the End. At this moment, Duoyu also frowned suddenly, and the curse mark covering his neck stopped, with a look of struggle and pain on his face. "You bastard, you've used the curse too much." Taiyu also scolded in a low voice, looked around, and found that she might be caught up if she continued like this. After a slight hesitation, she led Naruto straight to the end. Within the valley, Naruto noticed Tayuya's state, and he couldn't help but secretly said, "Orochimaru's spell seal carries his spiritual power. If you use it too much, it will be eroded by his spirit. Strength, think about it, it should reach its limit." "Orochimaru's spell is not that easy to use," Naruto said. "Shut up." Duoyu also cursed. Naruto couldn't help but be speechless. This guy who opened and closed his mouth was swearing. He really didn't look like a girl. Shikamaru and the others behind him had already caught up, and Tayuya's expression changed. Looking at the waterfall between the two giant statues of the first generation and Madara, he bit Kiba, pulling Naruto and suddenly jumped down. Puff! The two fell into the water, and Naruto quickly held his breath and fell into the pool with the waterfall. The powerful impact almost shook them apart, but Taiyu also held Naruto tightly, holding him in his hands, for fear that he would escape. The two sank to the bottom of the water and quickly flowed downstream with the current. Above the Valley of the End, Shikamaru and his party stood on top of the first stone statue. Kiba shook his head. "The smell disappears here, I think they should enter the water." "Neji, search with your Byakugan," Shikamaru hurriedly said. Neji nodded. Byakugan turned on, and carefully searched the entire Valley of the End, but the Valley of the End was not small. With Neji's current strength, although he could see through a long distance, he had to find it within such a large area. It's a bit difficult to get two people out. Searching for a long time, Neji still shook his head. "The chakra is a little insufficient, and my Byakugan range is a little blurred." How could this be? Ino was speechless for a moment, and at the critical moment, Neji's Byakugan was overused. Kiba and Akamaru's noses were blocked by water to smell. Is Naruto really going to be more fortunate? Naruto and Tayuya went out of the valley along the river of the Valley of the End. Only then did Tayuya emerge from the water, and suddenly climbed to the bank and lay on the ground, gasping for breath. Naruto was also panting. It was really dangerous, he almost drowned. The two gasped for a long time. Naruto felt that the toxins in his body were gradually dissipating, and his body was able to move. However, because there was no medical ninja to detoxify, he could not move freely by relying on his own resistance to the medicine. At this moment, his limbs were sore and weak, and he simply lay on the ground. Don't get up anymore. Taiyu also regained some strength, finally got up, kicked Naruto who was lying on the ground, and said, "Hey, are you dead?" "I am not dead yet, but I only have half my life left," Naruto said weakly. Now that his body was weak, and he wasn't sure if he could defeat her, he simply showed her weakness and let her be paralyzed and waited. He recovered slowly, and then he was able to escape. Duoyu also frowned, looking at his half-dead appearance, hesitant for a moment, and finally picked him up, lifted chakra and jumped into the distance. At this time, Taiyu has also withdrawn from the curse mark, and Naruto is soaked wet, and Naruto's head is right next to her smooth lower abdomen, but she does not notice anything wrong, but Naruto has already some can't stand it. After all, Tayuya was a little beauty, and the strange touch coming from her body when he was clinging to her tender body made him a little nervous. What's more, her face was still facing her lower abdomen. Looking up, it was the two prominent points that stood out, and looking down, it was a triangle area that was tightly outlined. For a moment, Naruto felt a rush of blood, and his heartbeat could not help speeding up. However, even though he was suffering, he didn't show any clues, and let her hold him and temporarily enjoy this fragrance. After running for a long time, until the clothes on both of them were airdried, a market town appeared in front of them. Only then did Tayuya let Naruto go, and when he entered the town, Chien tied his hands with ropes, and took off the forehead guards on the two of them, and then pulled him into the town. "Hey, don't you have to do this? You tied me up," Naruto protested dissatisfied. After a while of recovery just now, Naruto is confident that the poison is now completely cured, and there is no danger at all. Moreover, even if he is bound, he has a way to break free. "You bastard is too cunning. Even though you are poisoned, I still can't be careless. I don't worry if I don't tie you up." Duoyu also snorted, dragged him into the town, and said as he walked, "Wait for me to catch you. When you go back and meet Orochimaru-sama, you can make up for it, and seeing you, the guy who ruined our plan, Orochimaru-sama will be very happy." While talking, the two entered the market town, but they were greeted by pedestrians along the street. Because the forehead was hidden, although everyone was strange, they didn't think that it was two ninjas. Just seeing a sunny and handsome blonde boy being dragged by a girl, there are some 8 trigrams. Are these two brothers and sisters? Or a couple relationship? Disobedient younger brother or lover made a mistake and was caught and punished at home. 8 trigrams of passers-by are blazing. The two entered a hotel, and Duoyu was already hungry. After opening a room, they ordered 2 more meals. In the room, Naruto looked at Tayuya's dejected appearance with no image. "You ordered 2 servings of food, and you didn't untie me. Are you trying to starve me to death?" Naruto said, looking at her. Although he has regained some strength now, his stomach is empty, his body is tired, and his condition is really bad, otherwise he would have broken free. Duoyu also glared at him and shouted, "Captives are not qualified to negotiate terms with me." Naruto was speechless for a while, and couldn't help it for a while. Chakra was lucky, and just wanted to break free from the rope, but she heard her suddenly exclaim, "Well, I'm so full. For the sake of your safety, I'll let you eat. But if you want to trick me into loosening you, there's absolutely no way." Duoyu was also full of food and drink, and seemed to be in a better mood. A pair of bowls and chopsticks came to Naruto and said, "Open your mouth." Naruto was stunned. "You want to feed me?"